Now, judiciary, friends, is one such institution which ought to be neutral because of the very fact that it effectively checks the executive and the legislature. Judiciary has to be effective because it is the one who is the conscience keeper of the constitution, right? The protector of the fundamental rights and the custodian of the constitution, right? All your rights which are there in the constitution would be of no use if the judiciary is not intact or is not functioning in its proper way, right? Now, when we look around, when you find that judiciary, the institution which ought to be a neutral adjudicator, a neutral referee, we see that the same is not the situation. Many people feel that going to judiciary would increase their burdens and increase their miseries than reducing it. Accessibility and affordability is a very important aspect of a judiciary, right? But we know that judicial process is very time consuming, it is very cost intensive, and that's the reason why people, especially poor people, do not have any mechanism, do not have any way to approach the judicial process. And in fact, they have a fear psychosis about the judiciary, right? They don't want themselves to be indulged in the judicial process, and they want to settle the things outside. Because the moment you step in judiciary, it could take many years or many decades, and also the huge litigation costs which are involved. Right. India, I feel that the biggest reform which is required in the country is the judicial reform. Today, there are around 4.5 crore cases pending in all the courts in the country. 4.5 crore cases, right? Out of 4.5 crore cases, and all these data is from the website only. Out of 4.5 crore cases, around 90,000 cases are pending in the Supreme Court of India itself, the apex court, right? And what can you expect from an institution which cannot resolve its disputes in a timely way, right? There has been cases where the justice came very late. Sometimes justice came, but it was not been seen to be made. Justice should not only be made, it should also be seen to be made. Right? We have seen the cases, as they say, कि भगवान के घर में देर है पर अंधेर नहीं. There is darkness, there is a delay in God's house, but not darkness. But for how long? Or how many days? 2 years, 5 years, 8 years, 32 years. And what kind of institution is it which cannot adjudicate a case, which cannot resolve the dispute for 30 long years? Yes, I am referring to many cases, and one such case which President Ms. Murmu also pointed in Ajmer. It was a sexual offence case against a child, POCSO, right? And after 32 long years, a judgment came, and this particular fellow was being sent to life imprisonment. 32 years it takes to resolve a case. I mean, people have lost the hope in the institution. People have lost the utter hope in the very hope in the institution. And when we look around, we see the cases of judges, and in their houses, crores of rupees are being found. Yes, I am pointing at Justice Honorable Yashwant Verma, and apparently his house caught the fire some 4-5 months before, and there was pile of cash, right, hard cash found at his home burning, right? And people say that it was at the tune of around 10 to 15 crore rupees. It could be much more higher than that. Now, where this cash came from, right? And what the Supreme Court has done, and what your collegium system has done, it has failed the very aspiration of which it was made for. What collegium did to Justice Yashwant Verma? They transferred Yashwant Verma to his parent High Court, which is Allahabad, from Delhi. He was Honorable Justice of Delhi High Court. And what collegium did? They transferred Yashwant Verma to his parent court. I mean, are you trying to say that you put one thing here and you try to use it as dustbin, another court, and you dump it there? I mean, just by the fact that you are into the judicial system, are you above law? And when asked with the judges, they say that only 5 out of 10 judges are corrupt. Arey bhai, if you are not able to tell the name of the 5 judges, then a common man would have a very wrong impression, bad impression about the judiciary. When you say that 5 out of 10 judges are corrupt, then it means if you are not telling the name, that means all the 10 are corrupt. कि मुझे थोड़ी पता है कि 5 कौन है. मैंने तो यही presume किया है कि all the judges are corrupt, right? Now I am not trying to do a contempt of court, and I am not firing a pot shot over a judiciary. But then it is being said that when you are ill, you have to be given a bitter pill, right? Sometimes you have to give a bitter pill, कड़वी दवाई देनी पड़ती है in order to fix the patient, right? The biggest reform or the biggest fixation which has to be done is in the Indian judicial system. It was very well operating till 1970s. The whole conventional traditional system to appoint the judges was very well, and the conventional system produced really great judges of the likes of Justice Chinnappa Reddy, Justice Desai, and none other than the great Honorable Justice Hansraj Khanna. It was same collegium, I mean it was the same system before the first judge's case, the second judge's case and the third judge's came evolved, and they gave to something called as collegium system, right? I mean it is like putting a bandage over a wound. It is like putting a bandage over a wound. Are you to say that before 1970 the system was not working well? As I said that there were great judges which the country has produced. It is that you misuse the judiciary and let the judiciary to submit to your will, right? Surrender to your will in 1970s. It is you who have made people like Justice Ray superseding the 2 other senior most judges, 3 other senior most judges. It was you who actually superseded M.H. Beg and elevated him to the post of Chief Justice of India, superseding Justice Hansraj Khanna, right? So it was you who actually destroyed and made the judiciary subservient to the whims and to the might of the executive. And in order to correct that wrong, what you did? You came up with a collegium system in 1981, the first judge's case. I mean, you are trying to put a bandage over the wound which was created by you only. And please be very, very clear that there is no country in the world where judges appoint judges. You tell me one country in the world where judges appoint judges. I mean, how a system could be so closed door, right, so opaque, so non-transparent, so non-accountable that nobody knows what is the process of appointment. We just know that there will be Chief Justice of India, 4 senior most judges. Uske andar ki kahani kya hai? If I have Gurleen and Gulnaz as equally competent and equally experienced judges, why I would elevate Gulnaz into the Supreme Court earlier than Gurleen? What is the criteria? What is the criteria? Right? Because Chief Justice of India is the senior most judge of the Supreme Court, and seniority in Supreme Court is not decided by your age. It is not decided by your experience. It is also not decided by the cases that you have fought, I mean you have adjudicated, right? It is decided based on the day of your appointment into the Supreme Court of India. I think we have discussed this earlier. The earlier you are appointed into the Supreme Court of India, the better, the higher chances you have to be elevated to the Chief Justice of India, right? Now imagine the equally competent judges from some courts, let's say Punjab Court and Rajasthan High Court, Jaipur, right? They both are equally competent, right? They both have good, similar experience. But if I elevate Gulnaz into the Supreme Court of India earlier than Gurleen, then she would become the Chief Justice of India. But then what is the parameter that I have, measured when I elevated Gulnaz into the Supreme Court of India earlier than Gurleen? No. The moment you try to ask them, contempt, right? So it is so closed door system which is not open to any kind of accountability and no transparency, right? And there is no social research in the world which says that, boss, if the judges are not appointing themselves, then the whole, the independence would be compromised. ऐसा कोई सिस्टम नहीं है, ऐसी कोई भी कंट्री नहीं है जहाँ पे जजेस अपॉइंट जजेस, मतलब आप ही अपने आप को अपॉइंट कर रहे हो. What is this? I mean, you are appointing yourself and you're not allowing any other person to give his or her opinion. Nobody knows how the people, I mean, the judges are appointed, transferred or elevated into the Supreme Court of India, right? And that is the reason why I say that judiciary is really, there is a lot of reform which is required in the judiciary, and it is high time that we should modernize the judicial process, right? We should integrate the technology into the judiciary, because this is a time of AI technology. Why not? Because in order to resolve all the crores of cases which are lingering on in the Supreme Court, right, you have to really uphold it, right? You have to really reform it from its base, right? But when we look around, we see that the courts around the districts and the other courts, they call them subordinate courts. And you look at the colonial mindset that they have used. What is this subordinate meaning? What do you mean by subordinate, man? And courts are courts, be it at the local level or at the state level or at the apex, at the country level, national level, right? A court is a court. Why you call it a subordinate court? Because Britishers called it? I mean, this is a so draconian colonial mindset that we have to really do away with, right? There is an overhaul which is required in the judicial system, and the biggest reform I believe which is required in the country is judicial reform, the judiciary, right? And the collegium system has not worked the way it should be. And why? And try to compare our system with some other countries, and then try to imbibe the global best practices, right? You compare us with UK, USA, France, Germany, you will find that no country in the world is where the judges are appointed judges. They would have some executive, they would have some people from the other sections of the society, they would have some legal jurists, right? And then if such cases like Justice Yashwant Verma, and some days before Allahabad High Court judge said something about Muslims in the hate speech, and inquiry commission was being constituted, that was in December last year. Till date there is nothing happened, right? As far as Justice Verma is concerned, Yashwant Verma is concerned, he has been transferred to his parent High Court. And what are you trying to say here? I mean, a judge can always be asked to resign before a case can be constituted, right? I mean, imagine you as a civil servant. आप अपने ऊपर लेके देखो आप, Jashanpreet. If you are a civil servant and if 20 crore rupees are being found at your home, what is the action which would be taken place? क्या action होगा? You will be suspended. I mean, you as a civil servant can be suspended the moment a illicit cash is being found. The same if it is found in judiciary, no action is being taken. To me, the very next day, an inquiry commission should have been set up, and till that time, Justice Yashwant Verma should have been suspended or withdrawn from his services. Till the time inquiry commission comes up with a report. And what Collegium did? They very quickly transferred Yashwant Verma, Honorable Justice Yashwant Verma, from Delhi High Court to his parent court, which is Allahabad. The Delhi court has produced one of the great judges in the country, you see, and one of the most strongest court the country has is Delhi High Court, right? And if in such courts such kind of allegations and such kind of things are there, then I mean people would lose the reverence or the respect which they have in the judiciary. And who do you want really to go into the judicial process? If I ask you, आप अपने आप को देखते हो जुडिशियल प्रोसेस के अंदर कि भाई केसेस वगैरह नहीं, आप हमेशा दूर भागने की कोशिश करते हो कोर्ट से, बिकॉज ऑफ इट इज वेरी वेरी एक्सपेंसिव, वेरी टाइम कंज्यूमिंग. Justice doesn't come for decades, right? And people have lost the hope from the judiciary. People have lost the hope from judiciary, right? In this context, we'll start with our discussion on Indian judiciary and what are the different reforms which are required, the sad state of the affairs which are there in India, right? the disposal, the cases, I mean the cases which are being filed and the cases which are being disposed, this is called as case disposal rate, right? कितने cases dispose हुए as a ratio of the cases which are being filed, right? When we see that the ratio is, though it is improving, but still there are a lot of challenges which are there in the system, right? There is, the disposal is as a ratio of the filing of the cases is not that great, is not that high, right? When you compare the population of the country and the number of judges that we have, it is very, very low. It is very, very low. Plus the police system is also very lethargic, right? They keep on, dragging the case unnecessary, and sometimes politicians come and then they try to point out some of the bureaucrats who try to reform the system, right? You know what happened in Maharashtra, where the deputy chief minister called this IPS lady, right, of what she was doing to remove some illegal establishments, right? That itni daring aa gayi aap mein ki aap ye kar rahe ho, right? I mean, this is a system which has to be corrected, and otherwise people would really leave the country and would go to some other avenues, right? So, and what the judges think, right? I mean, when you go to the court, you just try to go to the court and how much time it takes in the litigation, right? The judge will fix the case in 10 o'clock at 10. Judges will fix the case in morning, and your turn will come in the evening. I mean, कहा जाता है कि जूते घिस जाएंगे आप कोर्ट के चक्कर लगा के, पर न्याय मिलने वाला नहीं है, न्याय बहुत दूर मिलेगा, right? The judge fixes the case in the morning and you are being asked to come in the late evening 5 o'clock, as if that the judge's time is valuable and everyone else's time is hopeless. What is this? मतलब आप ही का टाइम सबसे बड़ा valuable है और दूसरे लोगों का टाइम बिल्कुल hopeless है. There are 25 high courts in the country, and the total strength of the judges has to be around 1500 judges across the nation, around 1100 to 1500, right? Mostly 1100 to 1200. Out of 1200 capacity of the different high courts, which are 25 high courts which are there in the country, till date there are around 400 judges posts which are vacant. There have been high courts who have not seen the Chief Justice for many months. Yes, I am pointing at the case at Jharkhand High Court. It didn't saw the Chief Justice for more than 6 months. Can you imagine a court running without a Chief Justice? Without a Chief Justice. Of course, they had some acting person, acting CJ, but then without a full-fledged Chief Justice for more than 6 months. What an utter despair in the judicial system, which is beyond any fixation. But if we don't do it now, then the future generation, Gen Z and the coming generation, would actually lose the hope. Right? Judiciary is there to ensure justice, right? And if the justice is not coming in time, then there is no justice, right? Even if the justice comes, but if it is not been seen to be coming, then it is no justice, right? Justice should not only be delivered, it should also be seen to be delivered. Compare it with the Rajiv Gandhi assassinators, 1990s, right? And in 2022, Peravalan is being released from the jail. Now, you know what statement he said? Sir, 35 years I have languished in the jail. पूरी मैंने जवानी अपनी जेल के अंदर, when this blast happened, my role was not that grave for me to be given the death penalty and the life imprisonment. I abetted the crime in another way by supplying some tools and etc., some transmitters. But on that account, I was being seen as a guilty alongside with all other accused people, right? And I was being booked for death penalty since 1991 till 2022. 30 years got passed, and when this assassination happened in 1991, he was just 22 years in age. Just 20 years in age, right? And when he came out, he was almost 55. All his life he languished in the jail. And especially those 10 years was horrible. When every day they have to wake up just to listen whether they will be alive or dead. Because the mercy petition was pending since 2002. and the judgment came before 2011. And what kind of judicial system it is? What kind of judicial system it is, right? It is utter despair, and beyond, I would say, until unless a major reform is not being done in the judicial system, I consider that people have already lost the hope, and if the collegium system is not being fixed, the things would be much more difficult and daunting. Now you see the collegium system, no? And a very beautifully NJAC came, National Judicial Appointment Commission, right? It was a very good innovation, I believe. And the moment you try to check how the judges are being appointed, the judiciary will not allow. Judiciary doesn't want any outsider to look into how judges are appointed. Are bhai, what are you trying to say? There is huge nepotism and favoritism in judiciary. There are cases of nepotism, favoritism where some judges, as I said, are being transferred or are being elevated earlier than the other judges. There is a clear case of nepotism and favoritism. And what collegium, I believe, would have done for Justice Yashwant Verma's case would have been suspending him, right, or withdrawing him from the services for the time being the inquiry commission comes up with a report. But transferring him to other parent court, I mean, putting one problem from one particular place to another place, like a dustbin. And at max, what they'll do, they'll ask him to resign. This December, this case came from Allahabad High Court when apparently the judge of the Allahabad High Court said something about Muslims in the open court, outside, I mean, at some public conference, something, right? And on him, Judicial Inquiry Commission was set up, so and so forth. Nothing happened, right? Has any judge been impeached till date? Has any judge been impeached? हाँ, motion वो start हुआ था 5 judges के लिए, but has any judge been impeached till date? Are you to say that judges are perfect? Are you to say that judges are holy cows? Are you to say that judges cannot do any wrong? Are you to say that judges are of a different ilk and they are different from us? A judiciary is also a system, institution, right? It is also an institution. It can also have some evils. It also can have some problems. And until and unless, and now when now you made executive in such a position that it is helpless. Executive is helpless today. You see, take for example the case of Justice Yashwant Verma. Now you only decide that what is right and wrong, and you transfer this person, this honorable judge, to some other court, right? And you created a system in such a way that you have actually let the executive with no solution, because executive is not allowed to interfere into this process. And what people say, अरे यार ऐसे judges है, इस तरह की judiciary है, आप कुछ करते नहीं हो, आप मतलब कि एग्जीक्यूटिव, और जब कुछ करने लगेंगे तो एग्जीक्यूटिव खुद ही, जुडिशरी खुद ही मना कर देगी, जैसे एनजैक को हाईजैक कर दिया. एनजैक वाज बीइंग स्ट्रक डाउन बाय द सुप्रीम कोर्ट saying that unconstitutional, it is the basic structure of the constitution, executive cannot interfere into the judiciary, article 50 directive principle. And you only try to say what is basic structure, and you only will define what is basic structure. And the very preamble, which itself was a basic structure, we the people of India gave the preamble to the nation. Now, how much basic it could be, right? How much grand norm it could be. We the people of India, having solemnly resorted to the constitution and given to this constitution. The same constitution the preamble was being amended when the country was in emergency. You are to decide what is basic structure. And then there is a clear tussle between two basic structures and you don't have any answer, right? And that too just with 6:7, right? Keshavanand Bharati. One judge going here and there. I mean, only one judge, Justice Honorable Hansraj Khanna, was the one to talk about the basic structure doctrine. None of the other judges talked about basic structure. And what you did, we all know, the great Hansraj Khanna. The same people, M.H. Beg and the other and the Attorney General also, including the AGI, said that boss, right to life can be taken away during emergency, right? So it is the executive which tried to do all the, I would say, pain to the judiciary in 1970s, and as a bandage, they try to put this bandage on the wound in the form of collegium system. ये कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के अंदर कहीं भी कलेजियम सिस्टम नहीं है. तो आर यू ट्राइंग टू से हियर दैट डॉक्टर अंबेडकर एंड द ग्रेट Iyengars and those leaders, the great jurists and the lawyers, they were all foolish, they didn't have any brain? But if the collegium system came in 1981, the first judge's case, and of course in 1992 the second judge's case, so on and so forth, right? Are you trying to say that the lawmakers or the founders of the constitution didn't have any idea about the collegium system? I mean, what is this going on? You try to kill the system and then you try to put the bandage in 1981 before the big tragedy, right? And then you don't allow any other person to look into the judiciary. And how a system could be, and we understand that judicial activism should be there, but judicial activism should not lead to judicial adventurism. And judiciary should not try to poke its nose unnecessary in everything. हर जगह टांग अड़ाने की जरूरत नहीं है. I mean, come on, you are Supreme Court. Try to behave as a Supreme Court of India, right? And this is a bitter pill to fix the patient, right? Here I am not trying to have any pot shot over the judiciary, because it is this judiciary which have saved this country, and we expect and we have a strong hope that in the coming times also judiciary would stand strong and be a robust institution. But we don't want such delays happening. We don't want the collegium system to be very opaque, closed door, non-transparent. And in such situation, people will certainly lose hope from the very judicial system, right? And the same is happening in the country. It is high time that the coming generation should work to reform the judicial system. Otherwise, what we are seeing in the neighboring countries could happen to us also. Right? So here we start the chapter on judiciary, on this divergent views and the huge reform which is required in the judicial system. Until then, it would be really difficult, and you see the system how it is. You see what we call separation of powers. What is separation of powers? There are 3 organs of the state, and these 3 organs have different functions. They have different functions in order to make sure that all the functions are not being performed by one individual. Because power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. If I give you all the power, judicial power, law making power, law adjudicating power, law implementing power, the same which was happening during the king's times, right? King was the one to make the laws, king was the one to execute the laws, king was also the judge. If you try to do this, it would lead to despotism and misuse and abuse of power, right? And that is the reason why we separated these functions from one individual and then separated it, right? The degree of separation varies from country to country. Of course, America has a very rigid separation of powers, a strict separation of powers. And this separation of powers gives you ensures a system of check and balances, right? We have seen in the last, I would say, 4 to 5 lectures where we talked about legislative system, right? How the legislature, the parliament is exercising an effective control over the executive, be it a legislative control or a financial control through various parliamentary committees, through the passage of the bills, so on and so forth, right? Legislature controls over executive, fair? Judiciary is controlling over, I want the attention of the students here at the back. Judiciary is controlling legislature as well as executive. Any unjust law passed by the judiciary, passed by the legislature would be checked by the judiciary. And any unlawful action of the executive would also be checked by the judiciary, right? And of course, after Maneka Gandhi case, the due process of law emerged that an individual will also get protection from the unjust arbitrary action of the legislature. Before Maneka Gandhi, you were being protected only from the arbitrary action of the executive, but not the arbitrary action of the legislature. For example, national emergency, when it was imposed, Article 352, many of the rights of the individuals were being taken away, including 20, 21, 22, 19, so on and so forth, right? Then Maneka Gandhi case came, and of course they said that any unjust law of the legislature should also be knocked down, should also be struck down. Only for us to take us to 1994 Kartar Singh and the Tada case, right? To say that, oh, once the terrorist laws are there, judiciary cannot question such preventive detentions. I mean, you revived the ghost of A.K. Gopalan. You revived the ghost of A.K. Gopalan. Legislature is putting an effective check on the executive. Executive is also some way or the other way trying to have a balance in the legislative system, right? But I believe that this system of check and balances is utter disguise. Utter disguise. It's a travesty of justice. It's a travesty of justice. Executive is checked by legislature. Legislature have bit of control by the executive. But tell me, who is checking judiciary? You tell me now. You tell me today, who is checking the judiciary? What is the answer? In the system of check and balances, ensured by the system of separation of powers, there is a check and balance over the legislature and executive over each other. And judiciary is checking executive as well as legislature. But who is checking judiciary? No one. What kind of system of check and balances it could be, where one particular organ which ought to be a neutral referee, which ought to be the custodian of the constitution, the conscience keeper of the constitution, the protector of the fundamental right, is not checked at all. There is no mechanism where you can check judiciary. Till date, no judge has been impeached, right? And what maximum they will do? They will ask the judge to resign before something starts. What system it could be, except for one impeachment process, which is a grave thing, I mean, rare thing, right? Except for that mechanism, there is no other way to check the judiciary. As far as their appointments are concerned, as far as their transfers are concerned, as far as their corruption cases are concerned. It is the God who got the fire into this house of Honorable Justice, and more than 10 crore rupees were being found. And what you did? Transferred this person to another high court. The same person, Amritsari Punjabi, Justice Honorable Hansraj Khanna, when he tried to expose the executive, what you did? He was to be elevated to the post of CJI. You superseded him. You superseded him by M.H. Beg and made him the Chief Justice of India. It was he who told that right to life and liberty predates the constitution. And in a letter when he wrote to his sister, he said, because of my decision in ADM Jabalpur versus Shivkant Shukla, my sister, I am writing this very clearly, that I would be not appointed as the CJI, and I don't have any other option, but I have to stand for the justice, and I know that I will be very soon resigning after this judgment. 4:1, right? Only one dissenter in ADM Jabalpur, Justice Honorable Hansraj Khanna. When New York Times was being asked, they said that Justice Hansraj Khanna ke murtiyan lagni chahiye. I didn't find any murti in Amritsar also. Forget about other places. Because of some judges, the country remained intact, and it was there was no collegium. Collegium came in 1990s, boss. Collegium came in 1990s. For the first time it was discussed was in 1981 by Indira Gandhi. Then also there was no binding foundation of the president on the president to accept the advice of the CJI. In 1990s, in the second judge's case, you came up with the proposition that the advice of the CJI is binding on you. I mean, you have killed the system. You have killed the system. And before that also it was working really well before 1970s. Great judges have been produced by the Supreme Court. Great judges. right? So there can be no dismal situation in a country where the judiciary is not functioning properly, and we cannot have a judiciary 21st century India with Gen Z. And you see, when you look around in some other countries, Nepal, etc., it is Gen Z revolution. It is a Gen Z revolution, right? It is a Gen Z revolution. You cannot have, in 21st century India, you cannot have a judiciary with a 19th century mindset. With a 19th century mindset. The same colonial mindset has plagued the progress of India. Otherwise, we would not have seen 4.5 crore cases pending in the courts. We would not have seen 90,000 cases pending in the Supreme Court of India. We could not have seen more than 400 posts of the judges vacant in various high courts. We would not have seen another Justice Yashwant Verma. Right. On that context, we start our discussion on Indian judiciary. What happened? This is the critical analysis that you have to take of the institution. केवल रटने में फर्स्ट जजेस के लिए सेकंड जजेस कैसे है, ये ऐसे अपॉइंट हो गया वैसे अपॉइंट चलो, ये नहीं करना है आपको. You have to have a critical understanding of the institution. भाई, who is checking judiciary? Tell me na today. You tell me today. The whole system of check and balances, you check the executive legislature. Who is checking you? And then if the executive tries to check your system, you try to say that, oh, it is violation of basic structure. Who gave this basic structure? And you give me one social research which says that if the judges are appointed judges, the independence would not be compromised. एक रिसर्च बता दो दुनिया के अंदर जहाँ पे ऐसी कोई रिसर्च हो जो बोलती हो कि जजेस, अगर आप जजेस को अपॉइंट कर रहे हैं तभी जाके उनकी इंडिपेंडेंस सिक्योर रहेगी, और कोई बाहर का आदमी आ जाएगा तो सिक्योर नहीं रहेगी. There is no country on the planet today where judges appoint judges. Not even one country except ours. Except ours. Right? And when the executive tries to reform the system, you say, oh, NJEC is bad. NJEC will strike it down. There is a high time that India should have a new system, robust system for appointment of judges to check into the allegations of cases of corruption. You may involve executive, you may involve, and look at the judiciary, how unrepresentative it is. How unrepresentative it is. There is only one judge, female judge in the Supreme Court today, Justice Nagaratna. Out of all the judges, more than 30, there is just one female judge. Half of the population of the country is women. And just one female judge. And she also descended on Sabrimala. Being a female also, she descended in Sabrimala. Right? Only one female judge. What a dismay it is. What a dismay it is. Right? How unrepresentative Indian judiciary is. The present Chief Justice of India, Honorable Justice B.R. Gavai, is the only second Dalit to be elevated to the position of Chief Justice of India. Before in 2002, Justice Honorable B.G. Balakrishnan was being elevated to this position, right? Being the first Dalit Chief Justice of India, and second, and he is also a converted Buddhist. एक मिनट, हाँ पानी देख लो आप, हाँ ठीक है. So this is the breaks the flow, man. That is the reason why I don't want any people going and coming in the classes. Now, how dismal situation it could be, right? Of course, he got converted into Buddhism. I mean, his father got converted into Buddhism alongside with Dr. Great B.R. Ambedkar in 1956. His father himself was a political leader, right? And alongside Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, he also got converted into Buddhism. But he's still, because as I said that Indic religion, so the SC status category is still there, right? only the second Dalit judge to be appointed as CJI. In the 21st century, 2025, only one female judge into the Supreme Court. How more you want me to talk about the judiciary, which is so unrepresentative, right? There are no safe places for women. You see, there are no safe places for women. Today, girls, you go to police station, you will not go to second time. And data shows that there are some atrocities on the girls, even in the police stations. There are some alleged cases of rape. Yesterday, there was a reel going on viral on Instagram that some sub-inspector, inspector exam is there, and these, exam means departmental exam, right, for the promotions, etc. And the same people who would be promoted to the higher position are cheating. And the people who would be the saviors of the law, protector, right, saviors of the law, to ensure the law and order in the society, they themselves are doing into such practices, then where the hope lies? Today, the infrastructure gap is so much that the judicial system, the police system is not safe for women. It is not inaccessible to women. And when I say it, I mean it. There are no separate washrooms. There are no separate arrangements for women, you see. One case came a few days before. We said that you cannot arrest women in the night. So now, of course, things are improving, but still, miles to go. Right? A lot of reform which is required in the judicial system, right? Before it completely collapses. And the countryman loses their hope in the judicial system. Right? We start the chapter on Indian judiciary on this context. We'll put some pointers in your notebooks, new page, new chapter, the judiciary. As far as the parliament is concerned, we have already completed all the articles from 79 till 123. All are being done and dusted. Every article has been touched upon, right? Judiciary starts from the very next article, article 124, right? And it goes till article 147 before the CAG starts, right? So this is how judiciary is. I mean, I'm talking about the union judiciary, which starts with article 124, goes up till article 147. So these are the things which we can discuss later, but the more critical ones, because every year you will find the question on judiciary. It is one of the hot pots. And you have to have very critical understanding of the Indian judicial system, and that can be developed only when you yourself is critical and not accepting whatever is being given. Judiciary collegium system, chalo ताली बजाओ. ऐसा नहीं होता. I am not here to teach you collegium system, ठीक है? I am here to give a critical analysis of collegium system and what reform is required in the collegium system. Are you seeing the Lady Justice? Are you able to see the Lady Justice? Yes, Vishal? She is also able to see you. And the color of the skin has changed. Though earlier it was black Lady Justice. And don't now ask me, sir, why only boy justice is there or gentleman justice is there. Because gentleman justice is not, you have to be close to women to understand what is justice, right? Lady Justice, with her open eyes. Earlier the eyes were closed, now at least the eyes are open, and I believe that she's also looking at the collegium system. I expect that the Lady Justice, with the copy of the constitution in her hand, unlike a person who flaunts the copy of the constitution in the public without reading even a one page. At least this lady, I expect, balances the law, and we expect that what happened in 70s should not be repeated again, right? But when we look around, we find recently the news of Umar Khalid. The judiciary long back said that bail is a rule, jail is an exception. It is the reverse which is happening today. Jail has become a rule and bail has become an exception. Detained under the Preventive Detention Law UAPA 2019 over the Citizenship Amendment Act protests, JNU, Umar Khalid. It has been more than 6 years he is in jail under preventive detention without any proper trial which has been constituted against him. And what kind of judicial system we can expect, right? Now the lady who has finally opened her eyes should also have a beating heart. The lady made up of clay or stone with her eyes open should also have the beating heart. Dhadakta dil chahiye, right? Otherwise there will be more detentions like Kartar Singh, like more in the future, right? Mention. Start with the sad affair of judiciary. You will see that, sir, why you are so talking about the sad things in the morning. It is not a sad thing, it is an eye opener, because my lady justice has opened her eyes, I should also open my eyes, right? Because judiciary is not allowing anyone to look into their system. They want to see everyone through lady justice, but they don't want others to see them, their own system. So closed door system, so non-transparent. The sad affairs of Indian judiciary and the way forward. कि प्रॉब्लम तो समझ में आ गई जेंजी को. अब जेंजी इज इम्पेशेंट, यू सी, दे ऑल्सो वांट सोल्यूशन, एंड योर जनरेशन इज वन जनरेशन which would make or change, dent the country, right? Your generation is very impatient. Your generation wants the solution right now. You don't want to, you're not a generation which will kick the can to the future generation for the solution. You want the solution today itself, right? And with all the technology and the AI which has come in, this generation wants the solution today. If you are not, we'll leave the country. That is very clear about this generation, right? Very clear about this generation. They'll strike some bans in the IELTS and then they file some other country, and with whatever English speaks. Imagine on yourself, no? If 10 crore आपके घर में मिले होते, you being a collector or you being a public person, क्या हुआ होता आपके साथ? अगले दिन सस्पेंड, जजेस को करके देख लो आप सस्पेंड. Right? So until unless we don't talk about these things, we would not understand what is the problem in the Indian judicial system. Right? And the problems are very old. It also requires an overhaul. It requires a long-term solution. The problems are old. It's आज की प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, समस्या पुरानी समस्या है. इतने साल अगर नहीं कर पाए तो अब कुछ चेंज करना चाहिए. अब कुछ चेंज करना चाहिए, राइट? क्योंकि other countries are able to do so, and one of the advanced nations like America, they don't have collegium, and they do have collegium, but they have executive also. They have people from depressed classes also. I mean, depressed in the sense underprivileged sections of the society also. Black people are also there, women are also there, some representatives from other fields are also there. A very comprehensive, inclusive collegium system, unlike ours, where only judges are there. Start. high pendency of cases. High pendency of cases. ₹4.5 crore in all the courts in India. Out of which 88,000 are pending in the Supreme Court itself. Look at the question. Look at the question. Question number 11th. IS Pains 2025, just few days before. Constitutional morality is the fulcrum which acts as an essential check upon the high functionaries and the citizens alike. I hope you got this statement. In view of the above observation of the Supreme Court की observation नहीं है. Explain the concept of constitutional morality and its application to ensure balance between judicial independence and judicial accountability. All my extempore that I have given in the past 40-45 minutes is the answer to this question. Is the answer to this question. It is not asking you how collegium works, but where is the problem in the collegium system. Judicial independence is good, it should be there, but is it leading to judicial impunity, where it has become a completely closed door system? It is talking about a balance between judicial independence and judicial accountability, which can only happen with reforms. जब एग्जीक्यूटिव कुछ करने की कोशिश करते हैं तो आप मना कर देते हो, और जब कुछ करते नहीं है तो कहते हो आप कुछ करते नहीं है. तो करो क्या? यू मेड द एग्जीक्यूटिव होपलेस. यू मेड द एग्जीक्यूटिव विदाउट एनी यूटिलिटी. करे क्या एग्जीक्यूटिव इसके अंदर? आपने ही अपने सिस्टम को क्लोज करके रख दिया. अगर आज ऐसे और केसेस होंगे फ्यूचर के अंदर, एग्जीक्यूटिव कैन नॉट डू एनीथिंग. देयर इज नो मैकेनिज्म वेयर द एग्जीक्यूटिव कैन डू एनीथिंग. And then the same court talks about the ideal of constitutional morality, letter and spirit of the constitution, checking upon the high functionaries, executive, legislature and the citizens alike through your rights and checks and balances, right? 250 words, 15 marker question. Now your favorite book will not answer this question, you see. You have to look beyond that book. You have to read newspapers, you have to really read some critical literature, you have to be watching some daily news at 9 o'clock, etc., to get that critical opinion where, you know, high legal jurists of high stature are being called upon to give their views about the judicial system. Until as we don't do that, because this exam is not about reading books, it is about you analyzing, and that is where I have written, the page is pasted on the bulletin board also, the analytical understanding of the things happening around, of which every young individual should have a curiosity of, right? हमें रटना नहीं है कि फर्स्ट कॉलेजियम सिस्टम क्या है, सेकंड कॉलेजियम, वो बहुत आसान है, बहुत आसान है, पर हमें इसको क्रिटिकली एनालाइज करना है सिस्टम को, राइट? एंड क्वेश्चंस उसी के ऊपर आएंगे. आप एक क्वेश्चन बता दो किसी बुक से हो तो, यू टेल मी वन क्वेश्चन विच इज कमिंग फ्रॉम एनी बुक, एटलीस्ट नॉट योर फेवरेट बुक. We'll keep on looking at this question, staring at this question time and again in the judicially discussion on judiciary. Till that time, the lady justice, the new lady justice. No, the lady is same, the color has changed. And this is a clear data from NJDG. The things that I have mentioned you, it's a clear data from NJDG. See the data. It is National Judicial Data Grid, right available on the website of Supreme Court of India. It is not a unauthenticated, irrelevant data. It is right there on the Supreme Court of India National Judicial Data Grid, and the cases which are pending, 88,158. Out of which 40% are the cases of less than 1 year, remaining 60% are more than 1 year. And the great Supreme Court of India, SCI. And all its live streaming can be watched on the website. It also has a YouTube channel, right? Yesterday there was a live streaming of this thing, governor's this case of where the Supreme Court put a timeline, right? And the Solicitor General Tushar Mehta, yes, Tushar Mehta was fighting a case on behalf of the Government of India, saying that since 1970 till 2025, there have been only 22 bills which are pending, state bills which are pending at the governor's office. केवल 22 cases ही हैं ऐसे. I mean, are you trying to say that we elected the MLAs, MPs, and then they elected in turn the President of India, and then President is kind of the custodian of the Constitution, right? And custodian means he is the constitutional head of the country, and you are trying to put a timeline over him. So he was, pleading his case in the SCI. It was live streaming yesterday, and the opposing party was, the other litigants were, of course, Kapil Sibal and Abhishek Manu Singhvi. And here is your NJDG on the Supreme Court of India. Here it goes. And the list of all the justices with the CGI, B.R. Gavai, Bhushan Ramakrishna Gavai. He will be remitting the office, remitting means resigning because 65 years, 23rd of November 2025. And only one female justice, Justice Nagaratna. +33 running at full strength, 33 plus CGI, and all the honorable justices on the screen in the Supreme Court. Justice Pardiwala, Justice Sundare, Dipankar Datta, J.K. Maheshwari, Justice Honorable Vikram Nath. See, what is being mentioned is this: date of appointment. Seniority is not based on your age. It is not also based on your experience. It is also not based on the cases that you have fought, adjudicated. It is based on the date of appointment in the Supreme Court of India. The earlier you are appointed, the earlier you will become the better chances that you will become a Chief Justice of India. 25th May 21, 31st August, 31st August, same. दोनों में से किसका? चलो यहाँ चले जाते हैं. Justice Honorable Nagaratna, date of appointment same. Many have the same. right? So the one who is the oldest would be the one who would be elevated to the post of oldest in terms of the date of appointment. सबसे पहले किसका date of appointment हुआ था? That judge would be appointed as the next CJI. All right. Next. Judicial vacancies. Judicial vacancies. "25 high courts with total strength of 1,114. 25 high courts with a total strength of 1,114. Total strength of 1,114 judges. 327 posts are vacant. Out of this, 327 posts of the judges are vacant, which is almost 33%, 1/3. And how you can expect a judiciary to run its show with 1/3 of its seats vacant? 4.54 crore cases pending in all the courts, and that over and above that, it is running at 1/3 strength and 2/3 strength. Next, lack of specialization. Lack of specialization. Lack of specialization. What do you mean by this? Judges, you require some domain experts, you see. They may be judges having great experience of pleading, great experience of adjudicating the cases, so on and so forth. But then a judge may not be able to plead a case about space technology. A judge may not be able to plead a case on commerce and finance. A judge may not be able to know what is artificial intelligence. And when you look some other countries, you find that there are some eminent jurists. In our case, one of the criteria to appoint the judges was an eminent jurist, but that is never been utilized. In Supreme Court, there is no history which says that an eminent jurist being appointed as a Supreme Court judge. A failed constitutional experiment. Well, Dr. Ambedkar and all the great lawmakers, they were very clear when they used this word eminent jurist as one of the qualifications to be appointed as the Supreme Court of India judge. But that particular aspect has been never touched upon. Right? And that is the reason why the cases takes long time. If a case is about, let's say, financial dispute, you don't have any idea whatsoever. Assuming you, a student of political science, tomorrow becomes a judge and there is a case which comes about nanotechnology. So you require domain expertise. When you compare us with others, Western nations, you find that there are experts. They call upon the experts. Then what is the mechanism left? The friend of the court you call, amicus curiae, right? But that is also not a routine practice. That is not a routine practice. He will not act as a judge, you see. He may, but then it is not a routine practice. Lack of specialization. Bracket, domain expertise. Domain expertise. Domain expertise. Domain expertise. Justice Suryakant. Domain expertise, right? Mention. We cannot run a 21st century India. We cannot run a 21st century India with a we cannot run a 21st century India. We cannot run a 21st century India with a 19th century mindset. We cannot run a 21st century India with a 19th century mindset. Courts, 19th century mindset courts. I strongly believe that Article 312 should be used, and this is high time that all India judicial services should be constituted. There is no, where is the judicial training happening? We should, everywhere you have income tax training offices there, some other departmental trainings are, everywhere you have some specialized training centers. But we do not have a unified common national judicial academy. It is high time that India should think about having a national judicial academy to train the judges into various aspects of law. Right? Article AIJS, All India Judicial Services, AIJS should be created. AIJS should be created under Article 312. Under Article 312 or through Article 312, through Article 312, through Article 312. Now, when we look around, we have separate. Judiciary is not just judges. You see, judges are limited. As I said, that 25 high courts, 1,114 judges. Supreme Court 33 judges. तो देखा जाए तो 1,114 प्लस 30 इतने ही जजेस हैं इंडिया के अंदर. Only these many judges are there. 1,150. That's it. To run 140 crore population country, we just has 1,150 judges in such a huge country. Such a huge country, right? That is the reason why there is pendency of the cases. That's the reason why. So Supreme Court should run on its full strength, and they should devise the mechanisms to resolve the cases. Some case management, dispute resolution mechanism should be there, right? And judiciary just have this 1,150 judges, including Supreme Court of SCI. But we know that there is also something called judicial personnel, means the staff in the judiciary. So इतनी बड़ी जुडिशरी है तो उसके अंदर क्या 30 जजेस बैठे रहेंगे क्या? इतनी बड़ी बिल्डिंग क्यों बनाई है फिर? When you have a so huge building of the SCI or for that matter any court, तो उसमें क्या 5 जनों के बैठने के लिए जगह है क्या? There are staff, there are judicial officers, staff is there. You see, thousands of staff is there, right? But there also there is huge vacancy, right? And individually also in every high court there is a examination for the judicial staff. Some of you would be knowing stenos in judiciary, stenographer, some clerks in the judiciary, some officers in the judiciary, right? Some other experts in the judiciary. So there are separate exams for every state separate differently. It is high time we should have one integrated examination, a common examination for the whole nation, instead of having state-wise recruitment systems, right? So, All India Judicial Services is the need of the hour. AIJS is the need of the hour. Next. Appointment of judges. Appointment of judges, collegium system, a closed door approach, bracket secrecy in judicial appointments, secrecy in judicial appointments, bracket close, lack of transparency lack of transparency has made the system opaque. Has made the system opaque. Has made the system opaque. Right. Next. No country in the world where judges appoint judges. I am giving you open challenge, research and give me one country where judges appoint judges. Only judges appoint judges. This is no country. पूरे दुनिया में ऐसा देश नहीं है जहाँ पे only judges are appointing themselves. मतलब only you are appointing yourself. You are not allowing anyone to look into your system of appointments. And then you say basic structure of the constitution. If basic structure is there, then why this pile of cash is being found? Who will check about these kind of things? And basic structure only is in your country. The other countries do not have basic structure. As if they have this executive interfering into the judiciary system. I mean, you try to interfere into every, try to poke your nose unnecessary in all the trivial aspects. कि कुत्ते वहाँ पे छोड़े या ना छोड़े. अब ये Supreme Court, it is high time should act like a Supreme Court of India and not like any ordinary court. It should not try to poke its nose in each and every aspect. Otherwise, it will lose its legitimacy. Supreme Court should act like Supreme Court of India, like an apex court. It should not act like an ordinary court. कुत्ते यहाँ छोड़े या ना छोड़ा. Don't try to poke your nose and everything. मतलब, what are you trying to say? We elected the MLAs, we elected the MPs, and every time you come ahead and try to reverse their judgment? What is this? Right? I mean, it should. I understand that judicial activism should be there. It should not lead to judicial adventurism. The whole system of separation of powers was to have an effective check and balance. We expected the system to result into judicial primacy. But sadly, it is resulted into judicial exclusivity. Nobody can question judiciary. Though the lady justice is in white, I am in black. Long live the law. Lack of transparency leading to the system becoming opaque. No country in the world where judges appoint judges. There is no country in the world where judges appoint judges. I think the air condition, finally the justice has delivered. There is no country in the world where judges appoint judges. No country in the world where judges appoint judges. Justice, right? It's a very broad term. What is justice varies, right? That is the reason why I say that do not fall in love with law. Law and justice are two different aspects. But I want that a new appointment commission, a new appointment system should be there. And if in case judiciary tries to block it, I want that the lawyers, including the AGIs and the Solicitor General, should defend this case robustly, should defend this case strongly. And I want that this time it should go ahead. It should surpass the test of the judiciary, who do not want itself to be questioned by anyone. It is high time. Justice should not only be delivered, justice should not only be delivered, it should also be seen to be delivered. Justice should not only be delivered, it should also be seen to be delivered. एक कहावत है कि भगवान के घर में देर है पर अंधेर नहीं. बट कितना देर रुके हैं? 30 साल. Then people would lose their faith in God. जो न्याय है 30 साल बाद मिले वो न्याय नहीं होता है ना. It is not न्याय. In God's house there is delay but not darkness. So it is just my expression. In God's house there is delay but not darkness. In God's house there is delay but not darkness. देर है पर अंधेर नहीं, right? In God's house, because my Lord is God, because who is judge? The judge is a Lord. That's the reason why we say my Lord, my Lordship. Because I don't know whether we'll access the God, but the way to access the God goes through judge. Because God, the very creation of God was to ensure justice. Very creation of God. Very creation of God was to ensure that there is justice, and people, are afraid of God. That is the reason why they do some aspects, right? But the same God, if do not give justice for 30, 40, 50 long years, people would lose faith. And the road to God goes through the courts. That's the reason why we revere them as my lords. उसके पीछे कारण है कि जो न्याय दिलाता है वो भगवान के बराबर होता है, राइट? वो भगवान ही होता है, बराबर नहीं, भगवान ही होता है वो. The person who delivers justice is God, right? And if in such God's house 10 crore rupee cash is being found, and that was in April, till date commission inquiry is there, until only the report will come, then we'll see whether the removal motion has to be taken up or not. And then इससे पहले तो इलाहाबाद हाई कोर्ट में गए. In God's house there is delay but not darkness. But for how long? But for how long? But for how long? 2 years? 2 years? 10 years? Or 32 years? One case in POXO, one case in Ajmer, Rajasthan, a POXO case. One case in Ajmer, Rajasthan, the judgment came after 32 years. One POXO case in Ajmer, the judgment came after 32 years in 2024. Judicial delays, judicial delays. A judge will fix your case. A judge will fix your case and make you wait till evening. A judge will fix your case and make you wait till evening. एड़ियां घिस जाती है, जूते फट जाते हैं, पर न्याय नहीं मिलता. Right? The same system of which we are already part of, and very soon we will also be part of the executive, right? And what kind of system is this where judges fix a case? I mean, it is completely unheard of. In my research and my analysis, I have not seen any country where such kind of delays are there. Such kind of delays are there. That's the reason justice delayed is justice denied, which you all know. Justice delayed is justice denied. Next, high litigation costs. High litigation cost. Very high litigation cost. Very high litigation cost. So, as we know that there is something called as when a patient goes to a hospital, and when he looks around, he finds that there are all people in white apron and the white clothes, you see. And seeing this, his hypertension increases, his BP increases, right? हॉस्पिटल में जाते ही कई लोगों को तो इतने सारे अपैरेटस, इंस्ट्रूमेंट्स और डॉक्टर्स जो है उनकी ड्रेस वगैरह देख के थोड़ा सा डर लग जाता है, राइट. एंड दिस इज समथिंग कॉल्ड व्हाइट कोट सिंड्रोम. व्हाइट कोट सिंड्रोम. सिमिलरली इन जुडिशरी देयर इज अ ब्लैक कोट सिंड्रोम. ब्लैक कोट सिंड्रोम देखते डर लगता है. ब्लैक कोट सिंड्रोम, द कल्चर ऑफ एडजर्नमेंट, judges fixing the case and asking you to wait for days and evenings, and you are, you know, waiting outside right there without your case being called upon. Right. Culture of adjournment should go. Culture of adjournment should go. It reminds me of Sunny Deol's movie Tariq Pe Tariq, Damini. I'll try to show that. Should I? Because in order to, until unless we don't understand the pulse of the issue, we will not have the interest, right? That is very important. यहाँ पे आके मैं 33 जज होते, आर्टिकल 124 फर्स्ट जज के लिख लो चलो बाय, ऐसे थोड़ी होता है. Until unless I don't give you the pulse of the issue, how that emotions would come? Teaching and reading is an emotion. It is not a force. Teaching and emotion, teaching and reading is a emotion. इमोशन होंगे तभी उस चीज़ में इंटरेस्ट आएगा ना. मैं तो ये कोई बाहर लेके अगर चल रहे हो तो फिर अच्छा है कि वो बाहर अभी छोड़ दो, राइट. लीव इट, राइट. Until unless that emotion is not there, you will not be able to enjoy the process, right. And life without joy and what do you say, happiness is insentient. Life without joy and happiness is insentient. It can be asked in your UPSC essay. लाइफ के अंदर जॉय हैप्पीनेस सब होना चाहिए, राइट. तभी जाके उसका मजा है, नहीं तो फिर पता ही है आपको. इट बिकम्स अ बर्डन, देन बिकम्स अ बर्डन. आई विल ट्राई टू शो दिस क्लिपिंग फ्रॉम सनी देओल्स तारीख पे तारीख, if you allow me, in the morning, but yeah, I believe it works. Acha, my net is not working. No internet, why? क्या हो गया? वाई माई नेट इज़ नॉट वर्किंग. अच्छा, इसके अंदर चलता है नेट. अच्छा, ये थोड़ा सा हुआ है कनेक्ट, देर है पर अंधेर नहीं, पर फिर भी नहीं हुआ. आई विल ट्राई टू mail it here and then we'll see how it works. But चलेगा कैसे? तो I'll try to connect it now.
इंतजार की हद हो गई, अब तो अगली तारीख दे ही दी जाए. मिलर्ड, तारीख देने से पहले मैं कुछ अर्ज करना चाहूंगा. इजाजत?
Your own fellow.
में ये कहा गया कि नामनी पागल है, उसे पागलखाने भेज दिया, जहां उसे पागल बनाने की पूरी कोशिश की गई. दूसरी तारीख से पहले अस्पताल में पड़ी उर्मी का खून कर दिया गया और केस बना खुदकुशी का, जबकि इस अदालत में मैंने साबित कर दिया कि उर्मी ने खुदकुशी नहीं की, उसका खून हुआ है. और शेखर भी उस दिन सारे सच कहने ही वाला था कि चड्ढा साहब ने फिर से अपनी चाल चली, बीमारी का नाटक करके तारीख ले ली. नहीं तो उस दिन मिलर्ड इस केस का फैसला हो जाता. और आज आप फिर से तारीख दे रहे हैं. उस तारीख से पहले सड़क पर कोई ट्रक मुझे मार कर चला जाएगा और केस बनेगा रोड एक्सीडेंट का. आप फिर से तारीख दे देंगे. पागल बनाकर पागल खाने में फेंक दिया जाएगा। और इस तरह ना तो कोई सच्चाई के लिए लड़ने वाला रहेगा, ना ही इंसाफ मांगने वाला। रह जाएगी तो सिर्फ तारीख। और यही होता रहा है विनोद, तारीख पर तारीख, तारीख पर तारीख, तारीख पर तारीख, तारीख पर तारीख मिलती रही है, लेकिन इंसाफ नहीं मिला विनोद, इंसाफ नहीं मिला। मिली है तो सिर्फ ये तारीख। कानून के दलालों ने तारीख को इंसाफ के खिलाफ एक हथियार की तरह इस्तेमाल किया है विनोद। दो तारीखों के बीच की तरह इस्तेमाल किया है विनोद। दो तारीखों के बीच
try to connect it from
लेकिन इंसाफ नहीं मिला विनोद, इंसाफ नहीं मिला। मिली है तो सिर्फ ये तारीख। कानून के दलालों ने तारीख को इंसाफ के खिलाफ एक हथियार की तरह इस्तेमाल किया है विनोद। दो तारीखों के बीच
यहाँ जाइए। अच्छा ठीक है। सो that is there.
इंतजार की हद हो गई। विनोद, तारीख पर तारीख, तारीख पर तारीख, तारीख पर तारीख, तारीख पर तारीख मिलती रही है, लेकिन इंसाफ नहीं मिला विनोद, इंसाफ नहीं मिला। मिली है तो सिर्फ ये तारीख। कानून के दलालों ने तारीख को इंसाफ के खिलाफ एक हथियार की तरह इस्तेमाल किया है विनोद। दो तारीखों के बीच अदालत के बाहर ये कानून का धंधा करते हैं, धंधा जहां गवाह तोड़े जाते हैं, खरीदे जाते हैं, मारे जाते हैं, और रह जाती है सिर्फ तारीख। लोग इंसाफ के लिए अपनी जमीन जायदाद बेचकर केस लड़ते हैं और ले जाते हैं तो सिर्फ तारीख। औरतों ने अपने गहने जेवर यहां तक कि मंगलसूत्र तक बेचे इंसाफ के लिए, और उन्हें भी मिली है तो सिर्फ तारीख। महीनों सालों चक्कर काटते काटते इस अदालत के कई बुनियादी खुद बन जाते हैं तारीख, और उन्हें भी मिलती है तो सिर्फ तारीख। ये केस पूरे हिंदुस्तान के कमजोर और सताए हुए लोगों का है। आज उन सब की नजरें आप पर गड़ी है, आप पर, कि आप उन्हें क्या देते हैं, इंसाफ या तारीख। अगर आप उन्हें इंसाफ नहीं दे सकते तो बंद कीजिए ये तमाशा, उखाड़ फेंकिए इनके घरों को, फाड़ दीजिए, जला दीजिए कानून की किताबों को, ताकि इंसाफ के ऐसे चक्कर में और लोग तबाह ना हो, बर्बाद ना हो।
दैट इज़ कॉल्ड एज कल एडजर्नमेंट, बर्खास्त करना, केस आगे के लिए पेंडिंग कर देना, राइट। सो हाँ कोर्ट में तो भाई बहुत ऐसे, इससे भी ये तो फिर भी ठीक ठाक बता दिया। कोर्ट कौन गया है, किसने देखे केसेस कैसे चलते हैं, कैसे प्लीड होते हैं, मतलब बड़ी बुरी हालत रहती है। मतलब इट्स नॉट व्हाट इज बीइंग सीन इन द मूवीज, इज वर्स्ट एक्चुअली। जॉली एलएलबी देख ही लेना जॉली एलएलबी के अंदर सब आपको पता पड़ ही जाएगा मूवी के अंदर, राइट। सो तारीख पे तारीख, टिल व्हेन एंड बाय एवरी टाइम द न्यू डेट इज बीइंग गिवन, by that time Damini will also become mad, and the same lawyer who was pleading the case for Damini would also be killed. Tarikh pe tarikh. So this culture of adjournment should be done away with. Something called a black coat syndrome. Coat, काला जो कोट पहनते हैं, black coat, right? Don't presume that that is the reason why I wore black, but yeah. So black coat. So as you have white coat syndrome, similarly that is being called as, and mind you, it is being given, this particular term was being used by President Draupadi Murmu in one of the conferences some months back. Black coat syndrome, very very important terms. That is the only way you can write mains. Prelims आपका ऑब्जेक्टिव नहीं है, योर ऑब्जेक्टिव प्रीलिम्स पास करके क्या कर लोगे आप, मेंस में अटक जाओगे, सारी मेहनत तो वही, योर ऑब्जेक्टिव इज मेंस। Charges of nepotism, charges of nepotism, charges of nepotism and favoritism, charges of nepotism and favoritism in the judicial appointments, in the judicial appointments, in the judicial appointments may lead to wrong choice of candidates, may lead to wrong choice of candidates, may lead to wrong choice of candidates. Country requires a comprehensive judicial reform. Country requires a comprehensive judicial reform. Requires a comprehensive judicial reform. Affordability and accessibility of justice. Affordability and accessibility of justice. Adopting global best practices. Adopting global best practices. Now the whole separation of powers, judiciary being the adjudicator of the, applying the law in various disputes and trying to adjudicate. We understand that legislature is checking the executive. Executive also some way there is a check over the legislature. Judiciary is checking legislature. Judiciary is checking the executive. But who is checking judiciary? No one. So the system which was to create a judicial primacy has actually resulted into judicial exclusivity. That means it's a closed door system. The system which was created in such a way would ensure the independence of the judges and would ensure that the judicial primacy has resulted into judicial exclusivity. That is a sad state, and this has further resulted into something called as judicial hegemony. This closed door system has resulted into judicial hegemony, that nobody can question the judge or judiciary. right? No check and balance over judiciary, right? You can clearly see there is no check and balance over judiciary. Judicial what do you understand by primacy? Primacy means something which is most important, something which is coming first, something which is most important, right? Which is coming first in the order. So the system was created in such a way which would ensure the primacy of the judiciary. That means it is first in the order, right? Upholding the ideals of the constitution, ensuring the fulcrum of constitutional morality. The same judiciary which gave the constitutional morality is the one to defeat it. The same judiciary which is the protector of fundamental rights. The same judiciary which is the neutral referee. Ideally, judiciary has to be a neutral referee. Itself is being charged by the allegations of favoritism and nepotism, is being charged by the allegations of corruption, bribery. So what we intended was judicial primacy, but what we are seeing is judicial exclusivity, and this has resulted into judicial hegemony. Next, non-representative judiciary. Non-representative judiciary. Only single women as a judge in the Supreme Court today. Only single female judge. Only single female judge. Non-representative judiciary. Only one female judge, single female judge in the SCI, Supreme Court of India. No SC/ST representation, no SC/ST representation, less SC/ST representation, no SC/ST representation. Honorable CJI B.R. Gawai is the only second Dalit to be elevated as a CJI. Honorable CJI B.R. Gawai is the only second Dalit to be appointed as the Chief Justice of India. Honorable CJI, the present CJI, B.R. Gawai is the only second Dalit to be appointed as the CJI. The first Dalit CJI was KG, Honorable CJI, KG, Honorable retired CJI, KG Balakrishnan. First Dalit CJI, KG Balakrishnan, 2007 till 2010. 2007 till 2010. Next, judicial activism should not lead to judicial adventurism. Judicial activism should not lead to judicial adventurism. Right? Don't try to do adventures. You are there to play a role of activist institution. Do not try to poke your nose in everything. Right? You are, mind you, Supreme Court. Behave like Supreme Court of India. You are the apex court. Do behave like the Supreme Court of India and not like any other ordinary court. Do not try to poke your nose in every ordinary things, aspects. अच्छा, एक कॉमन आदमी के लिए जज जुडिशरी मतलब क्या? अगर ऐसा कोई चीज़ होती है, यानी रॉन्ग इज बिंग डन, द नियरेस्ट प्लेस कोर्ट वेयर विल गो इज व्हाट? द डिस्ट्रिक्ट और the courts, other subordinate courts, which sadly they use the same word, subordinate, right? I don't know why they use the same word. For an individual, the first access to the court is, if it is a civil case, it is the district judge, right? If it is a criminal case, it is a magistrate, right? That is the first point of contact. The first access for an individual to access the justice, if it is a civil case, it is the district judge. If it is a criminal case, it is a magistrate. Now, I strongly believe that these judges should be of strong fettle. Until and unless these people are not properly qualified and of very strong legal acumen, the cases would be appealed in the higher courts. And that is the reason why the individual is not satisfied and always appeals into the higher court, because he is not happy with the judgment delivered by the local courts. So I believe that the local courts judicial officers should be of very high fettle in order to lessen the burden on the high courts. And the only way to be done is judicial training. And it is high time that the country requires a National Judicial Academy, NJA. The common man's interface with justice, is first in the criminal justice system, is first with the magistrate, is first with the magistrate in the criminal justice system, and district judge in the civil justice system. Full stop. These judges have to be of fine fettle. F-E-T-T-L-E. Fine fettle means very strong legal acumen, experts, you see. These judges have to be of fine fettle. Thus the pressure on the high court will go down. High courts, HCs. Thus the pressure on the HCs, high courts, will go down. And I hope you written judicial activism should not lead to judicial adventurism. Right. Next sentence. Even before the collegium system, the conventional system of judicial appointments has produced some of the greatest judges. Bracket before 1981, bracket close, like Justice Hansraj Khanna, Justice H.R. Khanna, Justice Chinnappa Reddy, Justice को आप शॉर्ट में भी लिख सकते हो, राइट? So you can always mention Justice Desai या देसाई, ऐसे भी लिखते हैं मौसा जना, राइट? Justice Desai, हाँ वो इस तरीके से लास्ट में आता है ना, हाँ तो ऐसे क्या चीज़, जे कहाँ पे आएगा? हाँ क्यों गलत है? तो आई तो बोला है देसाई, ये आए और ये मार्कर की वजह से देसाई की तो यार महान यार। जस्टिस देसाई, जस्टिस कृष्ण अय्यर, जस्टिस कृष्ण अय्यर, जस्टिस कृष्ण अय्यर। Next, today there is a disrepair. Today there is a disrepair in the judicial system. In order to resolve the crores of pending cases, SCI, Supreme Court of India, SCI must look to set up division benches, in different parts of the country, Next, there have been instances where the CJHC, Chief Justice High Court, there have been instances in the recent past where the CJ High Court, Chief Justice High Court, has not been appointed for more than 6 months. There have been instances in the recent past of CJ High Court not been appointed for more than 6 months. Example, JHHC, Jharkhand High Court. Again mention black coat syndrome. The heinous offence and the grave offence against Nirbhaya happened in 2011-12 and the judgment came in 2019. The heinous offence, the grave, heinous, atrocious offence at RG Kaur, Calcutta, and judgment came after long 1.5 years, and the family of the victim is still, pleading for this convict to be hanged till death. Such a heinous, highly grave, atrocious offence committed against women, right? And what is the punishment? Life imprisonment. I am not in support of capital punishment either, but then at least there has to be justice which is actually satisfied. So justice system, when we look around, we see that it is more of perpetrator centric. It focuses more on perpetrator than the victim. The justice should focus on the victims, right? Mention should have victim-centered judicial system. Victim-centered judicial system. Victim-centered judicial system. What is this न्याय, right? कितनी निर्भया है? How many? And At least these cases became, they caught the attention of the whole nation, the limelight of the whole nation because of the grave nature. But there are many Nirbhayas which are being raped without their voices being heard, because they are voiceless, because they come from a particular community which is already facing a lot of persecution and harassment. Yes, I am talking about the Dalit girls in the villages, but there is no voice, there is no representation, and people have lost the hope in the judicial system. If the judicial system cannot give you justice timely, then the women of the nation is not safe. It is shame on us as an individual, as the keepers of this nation, because we have given this constitution to us, right? So, high time that this black coat syndrome should go away. The culture of adjournment in deciding cases, तारीख पे तारीख को मतलब technically बोलते हैं culture of adjournment. Court is adjourned, will meet on particular day, right? बर्खास्त कर दी जाती है कोर्ट. उसने बोला कि अब बर्खास्त नहीं होगी. अमरीशपुरी को बोला अब बर्खास्त नहीं करूँगा मैं. इतनी तारीख तो दे दी, तारीख पे तारीख. कितनी तारीख है यार? 30 साल. Culture of adjournment, inverted commas, in deciding the cases must go. Delays in heinous, next delay, इसी के अंदर ब्लैक कोट सिंड्रोम से रिलेटेड चीजें हम बात कर रहे हैं. Delays in deciding heinous criminal cases. Delays in deciding heinous, H-E-I-N-O-U-S, heinous means highly grave. Delays in deciding heinous criminal cases, you see. Poor from the villages are still anxious to approach courts, They feel that fighting for justice will make their lives more difficult. They feel that fighting for justice will make their lives more difficult and miserable. आज अगर आप जुडिशियल केस के अंदर फंसो, आप फिर देखो, आप इतनी हाई लिटिगेशन कॉस्ट है. In order to, what is law, यार? I mean, न्याय is, judges are there to ensure justice, of course, but then they have to be convinced by the lawyers, and there are lawyers who can really convert an innocent into a guilty to an innocent, right? क्या उसमें अपन ने देखा था जब आर्टिकल 20 हम सेक्शन 375 का मूवी का अपन ने ट्रेलर देखा था, लॉयर अक्षय खन्ना बोलता है कि अभी आप जो बोलना है मेरे को बोल दो, पर कोर्ट में क्या आपको बोलना है, जो मैं बताऊंगा वही बोलोगे आप, right? So law lies in the minds of lawyers, right? And because of some people who have the money and muscle power, they are able to afford the expensive lawyers. There are various cases of hit and run, BMW hitting in Delhi in Gurgaon highway, killing people living sleeping at the pavement. There are cases of celebrity kids in drug cases. And today they have started a new venture of some series. But what happened? They are free. Try you doing so, right? So that means law is on the side of the one who has money and the muscle power. Have you seen a son or a kid of a politician in the jail or a celebrity as such? Even if they go, they come out, right? For them, bail becomes rule. But for people like Umar Khalid and others, bail Jail has become a rule, right? So this double standard should go. I am not supporting or favoring any one particular segment, but this double standard should go, right? Otherwise people would lose hope. They already lost hope in the judicial system. किस पे हम जो है hope रखें? Police system is corrupt. Judicial system is in despair. Where the common person would go? इसीलिए कहते हैं, इसीलिए nobody tries to help you out if some unfortunate incident or accident happens on the road. The moment you are there to help, again you become a testimonial witness, and then all those things would work on start. You will be called upon, you will be summoned, questioning, interrogation. पता पड़ा किया कुछ नहीं और आप लोगों को तो पूरा जो है बार बार बुलाया जा रहा है इंटरोगेशन के लिए, right? And if nothing works, then you see, if you don't resolve the situation now, it could lead to civil war, right? And it's happening in the neighboring countries. If it's happening there very close, it can happen now here also, just 100 kilometers from here, just 100 kilometers from Uttar Pradesh border, just 100 kilometers from West Bengal. It's happening, right? When the people lose hope, they become frustrated, and their frustration would vent out by taking the law in their hands. That's the reason why mob violence is on rise, right? So fighting for justice will make their lives even more difficult and miserable. In the same continuation, judicial process lacks sensitivity. Judicial process lacks sensitivity. Right. Next, case disposal rate is the ratio of the cases being disposed, to the total cases filed. Total cases Now we want this ratio to increase, right? We want that the cases which are being disposed of to the total cases being filed have to be increased, right? That can happen only when you have skilled, qualified judicial officers, right? And this is something which Honorable retired CJI DYC D.Y. Chandrachud has mentioned, and I quote: retired CJI DYC, in short if you want, retired CJI D.Y. Chandrachud DYC, the increase in the CDR, I mean cash deposit ratio नहीं है, this is case disposal rate. The increase in the CDR hinges on hinges on attracting skilled personnel. It hinges on attracting skilled personnel. But when we look around, when we see that there are district level vacancies, when you look into district level vacancies, you find that the judicial the vacancies are both on the judicial part as well as the non-judicial part, I mean the administrative part, right? Judicial personnel and the administrative staff or the non-judicial staff. It is huge. Judicial personnel, it is 28% vacancy in the judicial personnel. 28%. And here in non-judicial staff, जिसमें administrative staff, जिसमें stenos आ जाते हैं, clerks आ जाते हैं, officers आ जाते हैं, administrative officers आ जाते हैं, सारे के, that is also 27% as per the data. and this is district level vacancies. क्या हो गया? You have a mock test also today, 12 to 1, and then you have exams also in the afternoon. I am trying to leave the class early, maybe around 11 o'clock, right? Because some festival is also there, festival vibes are there, and hope all the things that we discussed on the courtyards of the great Gurdwara very close by, the God listens, and we have some new system for the Gen Z. एंड ऑफकोर्स ऐसा नहीं कि काम नहीं कर रहे हैं, काम नहीं हो रहा है, मतलब मैं आपको एक क्रिटिकल जो एनालिसिस करा रहा हूँ, इसका मतलब आपको डिप्रेस नहीं कर रहा हूँ मैं. आई माई ऑब्जेक्टिव इज नॉट टू डिप्रेस यू, बट समटाइम्स यू हैव टू गिव द बिटर पिल टू द इन ऑर्डर टू फिक्स द पेशेंट. कड़वी दवाई देनी पड़ती है, तब ही जाके वो पेशेंट को आप बीमारी से सही कर सकते हो. और जब तक कड़वी दवाई नहीं दोगे तब तक सिस्टम, मैं चाहता हूँ सिस्टम सही हो, ऐसा थोड़ी है कि मैं आपको डिमोटिवेट कर रहा हूँ कि यार अब कुछ रखा नहीं है सिस्टम में. सिस्टम अभी भी वर्क कर रहा है और कई इसके अंदर रिफॉर्म्स हुए भी हैं. विल टॉक अबाउट द रिफॉर्म्स ऑल्सो, बट स्टिल माइल्स टू गो. क्योंकि अपने आप से पूछो ना, आप मेरे से क्या हो, अपने आप से पूछो कि क्या आप जुडिशियल सिस्टम में जाना चाहोगे या अपने आप को. द आंसर इज नो. नेक्स्ट, in order for the disposals to outweigh the institution, क्या हो गया जशनप्रीत, उधर क्या कर रहे हो उधर? हाँ, in order for the disposals to outweigh the institution of cases, in order for the disposals to outweigh the institution of cases, the courts must work beyond their capacity. The courts must work beyond the capacity of 71%. अभी 70% पे काम कर रही है, 71% पे काम कर रही है अभी वो, 71% of the capacity. So they must work beyond the capacity of 71% to 100%. वो तभी होगा जब ये वैकेंसीज हटेगी. सबसे पहले तो जो 300 से ऊपर जजेस की पोस्ट वैकेंट है वो हटेगी, वो फिल होगी. ये जो एडमिन स्टाफ की जो वैकेंसीज है वो फिल होगी. कुछ केस मैनेजमेंट से रिलेटेड कुछ नए सिस्टम्स आएंगे, राइट, तभी होगा ये कि. सो 70% इट्स ऑलमोस्ट वर्किंग एट 71%. इट हैज़ टू इंक्रीज इट हैज़ टू वर्क एट फुल कैपेसिटी 100%. Next, there has to be a criteria of selection of judges. There has to be a criteria of selection of judges. There has to be a criteria of selection of judges. Right, which sadly is not right. है ही नहीं, ऐसा कोई criteria थोड़ी है. क्या criteria है बताओ? What is the criteria? 4 senior most judges headed by the CGI appoints the judges. Criteria क्या है? Criteria तो बता दो. If two equally competent individual judges are there, why I am particularly elevating one judge and making him or her into as a CJI at Judiciary High Court, or elevating her or him into Supreme Court of India? क्या है? Criteria क्या है? Try to question and contempt. Criteria of selection of judges and standardizing the recruitment calendars. Standardizing the recruitment calendars for all vacancies. Now, some of the reforms which the SCI has done, we'll try to briefly talk about them. SCI is putting efforts to modernize the judiciary, to modernize the J. SCI is putting efforts to modernize the judiciary by integrating technology, and thus reducing the pendency, Now what CJI DYC, retired CJI DYC has mentioned, and I quote, that though this case disposal rate is fairly increasing because of some of the efforts taken by the Supreme Court of India under his tenure, right? Still there are a lot of challenges which are pending, because we know that the cases pending are 4.5 crore, 88,000 in the Supreme Court itself, huge vacancies of the staff, judges vacancies is also there, more than 300 out of the total strength, right? So pending cases can be resolved only when you have the staff. स्टाफ में बहुत आ जाते हैं, जुडिशियल स्टाफ एज वेल एज नॉन जुडिशियल स्टाफ, क्योंकि जजेस तो केवल पूरा स्टेनोज भी तो होते हैं, इसमें पूरी टीम होती है, पूरी एडमिन स्टाफ होता है. सो यू रिक्वायर स्टाफ टू बी वर्किंग एट फुल कैपेसिटी. मेंशन CGI D, retired CGI DYC, retired CGI DYC, quote unquote, current national average disposal rate, current national average disposal rate, current national average disposal rate stands at 95%, stands at 95%, but despite the progress, tackling pendency of cases remains a challenge, unquote. Now under the tenure of the retired CJI DYC, he formed something called as SCI committee on the reducing the arrears of the cases, and they tried to resolve the pendency of the cases by some case management systems. उन्होंने क्या बताया कि 3 स्टेज के अंदर हम केसेस को रिजॉल्व करने की कोशिश करेंगे. फर्स्ट स्टेज के अंदर वो केसेस होंगे जो 30 साल से ऊपर पेंडिंग चल रहे हैं. देयर आर केसेस विच आर पेंडिंग फॉर मोर देन 20-30 लॉन्ग ईयर्स. सेकंड स्टेज के अंदर जो अपन लेस देन 10 ईयर्स के केसेस को करेंगे, और फिर इस तरीके से विल गो विद द थर्ड स्टेज, राइट. दिस समथिंग कॉल्ड एज CMS और केस मैनेजमेंट सिस्टम. यू कैन मेंशन SCI committee on reducing arrears of cases. SCI committee on reducing arrears means pendency, ARREARS. SCI committee on reducing arrears, ARREARS, arrears of cases, constituted under the tenure of retired CGI DYC, constituted under the tenure of retired CGI DYC, DY Changchud, called as action plan for case management, action plan for case management, 3 stages. So they're already working on it, right? So this particular committee was set up by the Supreme Court during the tenure of CJI DYC. Very well-spoken gentleman, judge of the court, and very accessible to the media, very media friendly. And we all know, right, CJI DYC, when he was there in the court, the way he was accessible to the media, friendly to the media, even inviting the executive at home for Ganesh Chaturthi festival. And many people lamented that criticized that why the Prime Minister is supposed to be invited at the CGI's celebration. Now, why not? My question is, why not? We call ourselves as a secular nation. Prime Minister has also gone to Dargah और चादर चढ़ाई है वहाँ पे अजमेर के अंदर. If the same person goes at the home of CGI celebrating Ganesh Chaturthi, then you become secular. अच्छा, What is this double standard? Right? So double standard it is. The same procession of Hindus of Ganesh Visarjan in Mandya, Karnataka 2 days before was being stone pelted by a particular community. And for the first time in India, I have seen lakhs of Hindus came together in Mandya, Karnataka in solidarity against such riots, stone pelting against the Ganesh Visarjan. But nobody is speaking on that. Nobody is speaking on that. And then we call ourselves a secular. And then we try to dump this word into the preamble. The grave error. Such loose expressions are not to be kept in the preamble, my dear. Because secular and socialism has a wide connotations. First stage. Forming district level case management committees. Forming district level case management committees. फॉर्मिंग डिस्ट्रिक्ट लेवल की सारी प्रॉब्लम डिस्ट्रिक्ट लेवल से आ रही है, चक्कर ये है. और ब्रिटिशर्स ने उनको क्या बोल दिया? सबऑर्डिनेट कोर्ट्स. अरे कौन सी सबऑर्डिनेट? काहे के सबऑर्डिनेट कोर्ट्स? तो व्हाई यू ट्राई टू से दीज कोर्ट्स एज सबऑर्डिनेट? किसके अंदर अधीन काम कर रहे हैं वो? व्हाट इज सबऑर्डिनेट? अधीन. आर यू ट्राइंग टू से दैट द डिस्ट्रिक्ट लेवल कोर्ट्स आर सबऑर्डिनेट टू द बिगर कोर्ट्स? व्हाट इज दिस colonial mindset has to go. And until and unless the district court judges, the magistrate and the district civil judge is not of high fettle, the case would keep on pending in the future, and there would be more crores of cases would pile up in the future. We have to be of a very high fettle, very fine fettle. First stage, forming district level case management committees to identify target cases. To identify target cases, comma, undated cases, and reconstruction of records, Second stage, bracket ongoing, which is already going on, ongoing, अभी चल रहा है, मतलब सुप्रीम कोर्ट की कमेटी इज स्टिल देयर, दे आर वर्किंग ऑन टू रिजॉल्व द केसेस. और कुछ बहुत सारे इन्होंने इनोवेशन भी किए लोक अदालत के फॉर्म में, जहाँ पे 5 दिन के अंदर ही हज़ारों केसेस उन्होंने रिजॉल्व कर दिए. सो इट्स नॉट दैट SCI इज नॉट अवेयर ऑफ दिस, दे आर डूइंग इट, बट एज अ होल सिस्टम रिक्वायर्स अ ओवरहॉल विच कैन कम. सी, you cannot change the system without changing it. I mean, you have to really overhaul it. And the biggest reform which is required today in the judiciary, I believe, is appointments. Until unless you are opaque and non-transparent, I mean, until unless you are not transparent, the judiciary would not reform on itself. कोई आदमी अपने आप से रिफॉर्म थोड़ी होता है. आप अपने आप से रिफॉर्म हो जाओगे क्या? आप इंडिविजुअल हो, पूरा सिस्टम है. Until unless a proper appointment system is not there, I don't find any hope of any reform. Right? Beautiful, I would say, act came, NJAC. Beautiful act in order to check the judiciary, but knocked down, struck down. Judicial independence is a basic structure of the constitution. Are you to say that the other countries are not do not have independent judiciary when they have the law ministers there? Well, you don't want yourself to be checked by any individual, and you try to check everyone. You try to poke your nose in every trivial issues also, small issues also. But the moment any other outsider try to check you, you will strike it down. तो ब्लेम एग्जीक्यूटिव को करने से ज़्यादा से के बराबर जो है जुडिशरी को भी करना जरूरी है. आई मीन, जुडिशरी शुड बी ओपन फॉर ऑल काइंड ऑफ क्रिटिसिज्म. आई मीन, इट शुड बी ओपन फॉर ऑल काइंड ऑफ क्रिटिसिज्म. Second stage, ongoing. Resolve cases which have been pending. Resolve cases which have been pending before the courts. Resolve cases which have been pending before the courts. For 10 to 20 years for, तो पहली कैटेगरी 10 से 20 साल, दूसरी कैटेगरी 20 से 30 साल और तीसरी कैटेगरी ग्रेटर देन 30 इयर्स, तीसरी कैटेगरी ग्रेटर देन 30 इयर्स। सो आप सारे केसेस को एक कंपार्टमेंट में बना दो, 10 से 20 साल के पूरा पेंडिंग केसेस, 20 से 30 साल वाले पेंडिंग केसेस और ग्रेटर देन 30 इयर्स के पेंडिंग केसेस। भाई आदमी की लाइफ स्पैन लिमिटेड है, 60-70 साल, 30 साल से अगर केस ही पेंडिंग रहेगा क्या नया, व्हाट इज द जस्टिस दैट वी आर टॉकिंग, राइट? इट हैपेंड इन बंगाल, दिस फेलो, एंड he was pleading for, I believe that more than two decades, 20 साल से वो प्लीड कर रहा था कि भाई I am the citizen of India, I am the citizen of India, I am the citizen of India. He tried to show all his identities, but सुप्रीम कोर्ट में केस पेंडिंग था, 20 साल से पेंडिंग था। फाइनली he died and he was into his graveyard, and then the Supreme Court came up with a decision, yes you are the citizen of India. केस है ये लाइव। But are you trying to show the justice to the person who has already died? Third stage. From January to June 2025, from January to third stage, from January to June 2025, Judiciary shall execute third phase. Judiciary shall execute third phase of clearing the backlogs, of clearing the backlogs of cases, clearing the backlogs of cases pending for over a decade, pending for over a decade. Up under CJI, Honorable retired CJI DYC, SCI did constitute something called as Lok Adalat, or without letting the case into the formal process, they tried to dispose thousands of cases within 5 days. 5 दिन के अंदर 1000 केसेस से ऊपर उन्होंने रिजॉल्व कर दिए थे। तो आप मेंशन कर सकते हो प्री लिटिगेशन डिस्प्यूट रिजोल्यूशन, प्री लिटिगेशन डिस्प्यूट रिजोल्यूशन, pre-litigation dispute resolution. Recently, SCI conducted Lok Adalat, capital, Lok Adalat. Recently, SCI conducted Lok Adalat. Around 1000 cases were disposed. Around 1000 cases were disposed of. Around 1000 cases were disposed of amicably, मतलब आराम से शांति से हो गए डिस्पोज। Around 1000 cases were disposed of amicably within 5 working days. Within 5 working days. Now, right, the next challenge which is there in Indian judiciary is the infrastructure gap, right? Now the infrastructure in judiciary is not female friendly, right? In some courts, you know, small court, the local courts you go, you don't have the facilities for women, right? You don't have a separate rooms for women, right? So the infrastructure in the courts is not female friendly. अरे भाई आप बाहर जाके कर सकते हो, फीमेल्स का देयर कुड बी यू नो फीडिंग मदर्स, उनके लिए देयर हैज टू बी अ सेपरेट फीडिंग रूम, राइट? नॉट देयर, इट्स नॉट सेफ, कैमराज आर नॉट अटैच्ड एंड वेरी अनसेफ एनवायरनमेंट, राइट? इट्स नॉट फीमेल फ्रेंडली। मेंशन infrastructure gaps requires a strong government court partnership, requires a strong government court partnership. requires a strong government court partnership, and as the data given by retired CJI DYC, and I quote, retired CJI DYC, quote and inverted commas, quote unquote, only 6.7% of our court infra, only 6.7% of our court infra at the district level is female friendly. Our courts should provide a safe and accommodating environment. Our courts should provide a safe and accommodating environment for all members of our society. For all members of our society. For all members of our society. Comma, in particular the VGs, vulnerable groups. In particular the vulnerable groups. In particular the vulnerable groups. Now, as I said that there has to be a nationwide, unified, integrated, common training curriculum. एक एकेडमी बने NJ और वहाँ पे सारे जजेस की एनुअल ट्रेनिंग्स हो, मिड करियर ट्रेनिंग्स हो, राइट, यूनिफाइड, तो थोड़ा सिस्टम को और एक कॉमन डायरेक्शन मिल सकता है. एंड द जजेस कैन ऑल्सो बी ऑलवेज बी under the 21st century mindset and not the colonial 19th century mindset, right? So that kind of thing is under discussion, which has to be there. To mention systematic nationwide curriculum of capitals, of judicial training in capital. Systematic nationwide curriculum of judicial training and harnessing technology to track our progress. Arrow down in capitals, National Judicial Academy, NJA. Next, calling the local courts as subordinate courts. Calling the local courts as subordinate courts shows a colonial mindset. And subordination. Because Indians were allowed only in the so-called subordinate courts. In the higher courts, you would not find any Indian members, right? और उनका मकसद क्लियर था कि सबऑर्डिनेट कोर्ट्स को सप्रेस कर दो, सबऑर्डिनेट ही रहने दो और इंडियंस रखेंगे वहाँ पे, एंड वी विल नॉट अलाउ द इंडियंस टू गो टू द हायर कोर्ट्स. एंड द सेम नोमेनक्लेचर वी आर यूजिंग टुडे, subordinate courts. Why this colonial mindset have to go? Because it has led to colonial subordination. We mentioned colonial subordination. इसी में लिखिए, we need to bridge the perceived gap between the district judiciary, district J. We need to bridge the perceived gap between the district judiciary and the high courts. Right. Now the legal system in India, what we see today is like this, floor to floor, be here, floor to floor. What we want the system has to be like pyramid. The judicial legal system has to be like a pyramid where bulk of the cases are sorted at the bottom, and then only the constitutional higher level cases goes to the upper courts or higher courts or apex court. In many countries you have something called a constitutional court, which adjudicate only constitutional related disputes, and the bulk of the other disputes are being resolved at the bottom level, right? But यहाँ पे कुत्ते भगाने का काम भी which should have been done by some other courts, but the fact that you are not going to change, बोलते रहोगे सबऑर्डिनेट कोर्ट को, अरे वहाँ के जजेस क्या जजेस नहीं है क्या, या केवल चाय समोसा खाने के लिए बैठे हैं वहाँ पे? We need the judges of very high fettle, fine fettle at the bottom level. यहाँ पे अगर अच्छे जजेस आ जाएंगे ऑटोमेटिकली केसेस ऊपर नहीं जाएंगे. यहीं से अगर कुत्ते भाग जाएं, the legal system should be replaced from a rectangular system, which today we are. वही केस जो है हाई कोर्ट भी ले रही है, वही केस डिस्ट्रिक्ट कोर्ट भी ले रही है, वही केस अब 10 साल 20 साल लटका रहा और फिर ऊपर जाके हाई कोर्ट में आ गया, सुप्रीम कोर्ट में आ गया और वो पड़ा हुआ है केस. It is high time that we need to replace this rectangular legal system to a pyramidal legal system. Pyramidal legal system. Pyramidal legal system. Pyramidal legal system. Pyramid, like a pyramid, right? Pyramidal legal system. Pyramidal legal system where bulk of the cases are sorted at the bottom. Where bulk of the cases are sorted at the bottom, right? ये होना चाहिए, और यही है बहुत सारे कंट्रीज के अंदर. वेस्टर्न कंट्रीज, दिस इज द सिस्टम व्हाट दे फॉलो, राइट? बल्क ऑफ द केसेस आर सॉर्टेड एट हियर ओनली. बट हम अभी भी कॉलोनियल माइंडसेट के अंदर ये सब ऑर्डिनेट कोर्ट्स, जॉली लेवल पे देख लेना आप किस तरीके से काम करते हैं, राइट? ऐसा थोड़ी कि जजेस ओनली इन द एट हियर आर ऑफ फाइन फैटल. यहाँ पे क्या कर रहे थे फिर? यहाँ के जजेस का क्या, यहाँ के जुडिशियल ऑफिसर्स का क्या, यहाँ के स्टाफ का क्या? So we require that the bulk of the cases are sorted at the bottom level so that the pressure on the higher courts is lessened. I hope you are getting the idea. Next, and this is a harsh statement, but I am aware about my boundaries, but the court should allow any kind of criticism also, because this criticism is not to showcase or expose anything wrong, but to let the reform happen, because I also want that the judiciary, which is the one of the saviors of the constitution, the protector of the fundamental rights, the conscience keeper of the constitution, should really act, which is it is acting in a more robust way, so that this crores of cases which are pending and the justice which is being served after 30 years does not happen, and no further Daminis are being jailed and are being killed, and no more Nirbhayas should be getting the justice which is very, very delayed and also or not up to the mark. And the harsh statement is, the collegium system was like a bandage on the wound. The collegium system was like a bandage on the wound. घाव के ऊपर बैंडेज लगाना जैसा है, घाव खुद ही ने किया. The collegium system was like a bandage on the wound. खुद ही ने घाव किया 70s के अंदर, when you surpassed all the conventions by putting your own people who also had adulterous attitude about you. Yes, you know who I am talking about. then the same thing you repeated. I mean, see, we are human beings. They are also human beings. Judges are also human beings. वो भी वही रोटी चावल पानी वही सब चीज़ें करते हैं जो हम करते हैं, right? They can also commit errors. They can also make mistakes. Humans are bound to make mistakes. But if you try to do the mistake double, twice, then it is worse, right? Doing mistake is fine, but repeating the mistake is not fine, right? Do not try to repeat the mistake. If you try to repeat it, then you're not learning, you're not improving, right? वही किया 70s के अंदर 2 बार कर दिया. And the sad case, the ghost of ADM Jabalpur is still around us. We have seen it there in Kartar Singh also. We have seen it again in Umar Khalid judgment recently also, right? We hope that the ghost of ADM Jabalpur was buried, but it is not buried actually. It is alive. It is thriving. It is alive. We don't want judiciary to be subservient to the might of the executive. We don't want judiciary to surrender to the executive, but it also has to look into itself, right? The collegium system was like a bandage on the wound. And then in bold capital, judicial scandal. Judicial scandal. The biggest corruption scandal. The biggest corruption scandal. Coffee. But हाँ बस coffee 11:15. The biggest corruption scandal where piles of burning cash, pile of burning cash reported at the house of Justice Yashwant Verma, Delhi High Court. Actually his house caught fire. आग लग गई थी हाउस के अंदर, और आग ऐसी लगी कि सारा पैसा उड़ गया और जल गया तो सबको दिख गया, तो फिर उनका ट्रांसफ़र हो गया बस. ये आप होते तो, if you would have been a public servant as a civil service officer, imagine next day suspension, or any person from executive, यही अगर प्राइम मिनिस्टर मोदी के घर पर निकल जाता तो unaccounted hard cash, that too around 10 to 20 crores, क्या करते आप? बवाल मचा देते. जो अभी कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन की किताब घूम रहा है, फिर तो वो पता नहीं कैसे एक्टिव होके घूमता. मतलब if the same kind of allegation is against the executive, you will suspend him the very next day. But the same if a judge commits, you don't do anything. And what you do? What your collegium system did? Transferred it to Allahabad High Court. And rule of law and the lady justice, with her eyes wide open, seeing and watching all the things. When pile of burning cash reported at the house of Justice Yashwant Verma, Delhi High Court, the then collegium, this happened in April this year, April 2025, April and May 2025. The then collegium is a body to appoint the judges, okay? It also not only appoints but also gives a decision to transfer the judges into various high courts, intersect, right? The then collegium, COLLEGIUM, the then collegium headed by CJI Sanjeev Khanna, the then collegium headed by the then CJI Sanjeev Khanna, transferred Justice Verma to his parent High Court. Transferred Justice Verma to his parent Allahabad High Court. Allahabad High Court. Using Article 222. Using Article 222. Now 5 to 6 months have passed. अभी भी वो जुडिशियल इंक्वायरी कमीशन के अंदर पड़ा हुआ है. अब आप ये बताओ कि जजेस को अपॉइंट करने का सिस्टम में भी जजेस को ट्रांसफर करने के सिस्टम में भी केवल जजेस के अंदर कोई एलिगेशन आते हैं इस तरीके करप्शन की, उसके अंदर जो इंक्वायरी कमीशन बनेगा उसमें भी जजेस. So how you can ensure fairness and transparency in a system which is regulated by itself? There has to be a person outsider, right? Isn't it? Now you look upon yourself. If the same, and the report says 10 crore rupees, many people have said that around the cash to the tune of 10 crore rupees has been found, जो कि बहुत कम है. 10 crore rupees, right? Imagine if you have been a minister or a civil servant, अगले दिन सस्पेंशन हो जाता. According to me, the collegium should have got power and the fettle and the courage to withdraw him from his services and then constitute an independent inquiry commission before he being transferred to any particular. मतलब आपने ये हो गया कि एक उठा के आपने दूसरे. Are you trying to say that इलाहाबाद हाई कोर्ट इज अ डस्टबिन? मतलब यहाँ का केस वहाँ जाके जो है इलाहाबाद हाई कोर्ट के रफा दफा कर देंगे, राइट? So should not be like that. There has to be some sanctity because people are watching you, and we have huge respect and hope from the judiciary. And if such kind of scandals happen and such allegations, of course I understand that the case is sub judice and I am no one to comment. The case is still sub judice, but there are strong allegations, right? And then many people, including some retired CJIs, have said that only 5 out of 10 judges are corrupt. But if you don't name them that who are the corrupt judges, then I would assume that all 10 are corrupt. And the same is happening. It could destroy public faith. It could destroy public faith in the judiciary. It could destroy public faith in the judiciary, resulting into the death of democracy. Resulting into the death of democracy. Next, collegium system has led the executive the collegium system has led the executive in a helpless situation. Helpless means very unfortunate situation. The collegium system has led the executive in a helpless situation. Means कुछ भी नहीं कर सकते हो आप. You cannot do anything because you are not part of the collegium. You could have been, but then the judiciary didn't accept it in 2015, right? In the very year when the NJAC was being struck down, नेशनल जुडिशियल अपॉइंटमेंट कमीशन एक्ट, जिसके अंदर लॉ मिनिस्टर भी इंक्लूडेड था उस बॉडी के अंदर, कुछ एमिनेंट एक्सपर्ट्स थे, SC/ST के मेंबर्स थे, शायद वीमेन रिप्रेजेंटेशन भी था, राइट? वेरी इंक्लूसिव बॉडी टू अपॉइंट एंड ट्रांसफर द जजेस. वॉज अ वेरी गुड आइडिया. वॉट यू डिड? struck it down, claiming judicial independence is a basic structure of the constitution. Judicial independence should not lead to impunity, right? Otherwise people would lose the faith in the very judicial system and thus leading to the death of democracy. Now I believe that the collegium people thinks that they are pure people, but ऐसा नहीं है. I believe that there is a systemic problem which is there, which has to be corrected. Mention systemic problem. There is a systemic problem which has to be corrected, and then last structure of judicial appointments and accountability. Structure of judicial appointments and accountability has to be created right? Now you look at this question. I hope you will be able to now connect this question from the things that we have discussed. Mind you, 15 marker question, 250 words were expected. They are in no way asking you कि wow the collegium system evolved. First judge's case 1981, second judge's case this year, third judge's case, fourth judge's case, NJAC. They are not asking you to write those things. वो चीज़ तो हमें पता है कि आपको रट्टा मार रखा है आपने एक पर्टिकुलर किताब से. हम आपको और ज़्यादा पूछना चाह रहे हैं कि ये जो बैलेंस बिटवीन जुडिशियल अकाउंटेबिलिटी एंड जुडिशियल इंडिपेंडेंस किस तरीके से आप मेंटेन, हाउ यू विल स्ट्राइक दिस बैलेंस कि जुडिशरी को इंडिपेंडेंस भी मिल जाए, एट द सेम टाइम जुडिशरी ऑल्सो रिमेन्स अकाउंटेबल. इंडिपेंडेंस शुड नॉट लीड टू immunity, should not lead to impunity. And because of the high opaqueness, non-transparent system, such cases appear in the country. And all the discussions, how many pages? Forms the answer for your question. Of course, not limiting to this, many things would change and new challenges would come, new allegations could also come in the future when you will be writing the mains examination next December, next August, September, October, any time, right? अभी तो एक साल है और बहुत सारे केसेस आएंगे, रिफॉर्म्स भी होंगे, एलिगेशंस भी आएंगे, स्कैंडल्स भी होंगे, केसेस भी आएंगे, राइट? तो उसके लिए क्या है? न्यूज़पेपर्स, राइट? दैट इज़ द ओनली वे. None of your book. Many students, from Bangalore also, they are still in touch with me. So, sir, we are thinking to prepare civil services. मैंने कहा जब मैं बुलाता था तब तो आए नहीं कोई, आप तब मैं फ़ोन करता था. They never used to turn up. From Khan, I used to call them. Okay, I am starting a batch. Come, join. They would stop picking the call. Now, sir, we have thought finally that we should prepare. Please pick up our call. मैंने कहा देखिए, I cannot move my head up. इतना ज़्यादा ऑक्यूपाइड हूँ मैं काम के अंदर, एंड आई एम टीचिंग 5 hours. लिटरली आई वांट टू हेल्प यू बट आई कैन नॉट एक्चुअली. सो मैंने कहा क्या सर एक चीज़ तो बता दो. मैंने कहा रीड न्यूज़पेपर, रीड फॉर 15 days देन कॉल मी. कॉल ही नहीं आया अभी तक. बोले कौन सी कोचिंग ज्वाइन करूँ, कौन सी ऑनलाइन कोर्स ज्वाइन करूँ. मैंने कहा उससे क्या मतलब है, पहले अपने आप को देखो तो सही कि आप वाकई में उस मतलब डू यू रियली डिजर्व दैट सर्विसेज, और that service do you really deserve you, or do you really find interest and passion in reading those things, right? वो आएगा, टाइम के साथ ही आएगा ना. 15-20 दिन आपने कोई चीज़ पढ़ी, फॉलो किया, आपको एकदम से इंटरेस्ट आया, इन सब चीज़ों आपने वॉच किया न्यूज़पेपर्स वगैरह के अंदर, टेलीविजन के अंदर, तब वो डेवलप होकर पैशन आता है, इंटरेस्ट आता है, मोटिवेशन आता है, देन यू स्टार्ट वर्किंग ऑन योर ओन, राइट? पहली स्टेप अब इंडिया के अंदर क्या है एजुकेशन सिस्टम में, कोचिंग कौन सी ज्वाइन करूँ, या वो ऑनलाइन आजकल तो सब हो गया, तो ऑनलाइन कौन सी. मैंने ऑनलाइन में सब ABCD WP सब एक ही है, कर लो. बहुत सारे बैठे हुए हैं करके, और सब ABC KPC W सब एक है, राइट? सो It all depends on you. I mean, why we require coaching, right? When we can read for ourselves. सारी चीज़ें available है. I am also a student like you, old student of the subject, but since I have interest, so I love the subject. So that love and passion should be there. And मैंने भी बचपन से थोड़ी सीख लिया यार. I have also read and had this interest in the subject, so that's the reason why I'm able to share some of the things and try to generate that interest in the students, right? But this question appeared this last month, right? Just last few days, not only last month. In this way, we are able to solve almost, I believe, 4 questions out of 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. कलेजियम सिस्टम. एक और क्वेश्चन देखिए, दो जुडिशरी के ऊपर क्वेश्चन. डिस्कस द, यहाँ पे दे आर चेकिंग द स्टैटिक अंडरस्टैंडिंग, बट माइंड यू इट इज चेकिंग द इवोल्यूशन ऑफ कलेजियम. डायरेक्ट फर्स्ट जजेस केजेस 1981, उससे नहीं होगा. क्यों आया वो केस 1981 के अंदर, क्या रीज़न था? जब तक आप 70s का जो इमरजेंसी के अंदर जो कवाड़ा हुआ था जुडिशरी का, जब तक वो नहीं बताओगे, उसकी बैकग्राउंड नहीं बताओगे, तो वो स्टार्ट कैसे करोगे आप? और कई लोगों के लिए जो है कलेजियम सिस्टम एंड हो जाता है 3rd जजेस केस के अंदर. अरे भाई एनजेक के बारे में कौन बात करेगा? दैट इज ऑल्सो 4th जजेस केस. क्रिटिकली एग्जामिन द एडवांटेजेस एंड डिसएडवांटेजेस of appointment of judges into the Supreme Court of India and that of United States of America. सारे डिसएडवांटेज तो मैंने बता दिए, एडवांटेजेस भी बता देंगे, और we'll try to compare it with USA. Mind you, the both questions were 15 marks each, 30 marks, right? And my subject had 10 questions out of 20 in GS paper 2, right? 4 questions we have already solved, and this is the 5th we are already into, right, out of 10. So here not I am trying to make my case strong, but this is a fact. The judiciary के ऊपर every year you expect a question, every year. क्या है, लिखना भी तो जरूरी है ना. क्यों नहीं किया, क्यों नहीं किया? हो तो गया, इट्स डन, सॉल्व. ये देख के मैंने स्टार्ट नहीं किया था आज का लेक्चर. पहले भी जब भी मैंने जुडिशरी पढ़ाया इसी तरीके से स्टार्ट करता हूँ मैं. दिस इज हाउ आई स्टार्ट. क्वेश्चन देख के नहीं पढ़ाता हूँ. राइट, सो आई बिलीव दैट आई विल नॉट गो फर्दर and we'll just be here for another 5-10 minutes and we'll close for the day. We'll meet after tomorrow. Tomorrow is a holiday. Now these are some static aspects which most of you know, and I've already taught them, so nothing great. Functions of judiciary, right? क्या इसमें लिखा है, सारी चीज़ तो पता है. Nothing is there. It is a guardian of the constitution, it is a conscience keeper of the constitution, it is a protector of the fundamental rights. तो सारी चीज़ें हमारा डिस्कशन ही पूरा शुरू से उसी पे चल रहा है. लड़ाई शुरू से जुडिशरी वर्सेस एग्जीक्यूटिव की थी, लड़ाई पूरी उसी की थी आज भी, राइट. कौन किसके ऊपर भारी, ये तो कहना गलत है. अभी तो लग रहा है कि जुडिशियल भारी हो रही है सब पे, जुडिशियल हेजेमनी, राइट. इट एडजुडिकेट्स मतलब इंटरप्रेटिंग, डिफेंडिंग एंड अप्लाइंग द लॉ इन द लीगल केसेस, दैट इज कॉल्ड एज एडजुडिकेशन. सो द फंक्शन ऑफ जुडिशरी इज टू एडजुडिकेट, टू इंटरप्रेट द लॉज, to interpret the constitution. It is the final interpreter of the constitution, right? Final interpreter of the constitution. But somebody tries to interpret it, it will not allow. it's a neutral referee. It ought to be a neutral referee, right? It has to be a neutral referee. But we see the cases of nepotism and favoritism, where a particular judge is being elevated, a particular person is being transferred to a court. There are cases of nepotism. क्या होता है nepotism? भाई भतीजावाद, भाई भतीजावाद. I'll not name any particular judge, but a close relative of Honorable Justice Hans Raj Khanna, right? Close relative of Justice Hans Raj Khanna. At least his portrait was not there, but his relative finally came to the Supreme Court of India. Yes. Recently, I mentioned you the case also, the collegium headed by the great and Honorable DYC. Why we? The era of 1970s, नई जनरेशन आ चुकी है. What they always say, Article 50, Director Principle, separation of executive from judiciary, right? And they do the chest thumping, judicial independence, basic structure, Article 50, Director Principle, separation of executive from judiciary, which is an idol. I mean, executive should not interfere into its independence, but intervening into the appointments should not be construed as killing the independence, right? Because there is no country in the world where judges appoint judges. There is no country in the world, including United States, which has the due process of law mentioned, entrenched right in their constitution, also has the minister as one of the member of the collegium. There is no country in the world. तो हम क्या विशेष ऐसा कहाँ से आ गए पता नहीं. आर्टिकल 50, डायरेक्टर प्रिंसिपल, ये चीज़ तब तो याद नहीं आई जब आप अपने फंडामेंटल राइट्स को बचा रहे थे. तब तो 39 क्लॉज बी एंड सी के अंदर सारे फंडामेंटल राइट्स की धज्जियां उड़ा दी, इंक्लूडिंग राइट टू प्रॉपर्टी. Now the fine balance you talk about also is based on fundamental rights. I mean, there has to be a principle of harmonious construction, a principle of balance between DPSP and fundamental rights. When you talk about separation of executive and judiciary, it is also the right of the individuals to be knowing about the system, how it works. But we don't know how the judges are being appointed, how the judiciary works, right? And that is a clear violation of my fundamental right, Article 19, Clause 1, Subclause A. In order to save one particular director principle, you are taking away my Article 9, freedom of speech and expression. Guardian of the Constitution, right? I should limit my words because I am on air. So, and the conscience keeper of the Constitution, the protector of the fundamental rights. But the same protector sometimes finds itself in a very difficult situation when there is a conflict between two fundamental rights, Article 26 Clause B and Article 25. Read with Sabrimala, read with female genital mutilation, read with Parsi Agyari, read with Muslims not allowed into dargahs. Then where it is? Fundamental right 1 versus fundamental right 2. अब बताओ, अब कौन सा basic structure? Basic structure 1 versus basic structure 2. Caught. Offbeat. Cases pending. We'll club all these cases together and then we'll decide. Arey bhai, one strategy cannot work for all. One size fits strategy doesn't work. But you are very proactive in talking about Sabrimala and giving the judgment of Sabrimala, but you never checked about what is happening in Dawoodi Bohra. You never talked about the discriminatory practice happening in Parsi community or some Muslim community, but you jumped over Sabrimala. Then to find yourself in a difficult position and the cases are clubbed, pending, 7-judge bench. Till इतना सेंसिटिव है ये, इसके ऊपर कभी आएगा ही नहीं कोई डिसीजन. Again, trying to find out what is ERP, very contentious, very controversial. Don't try to become like a clergy, right? So, unlike the dual judiciary which is there in America, America is a different setup altogether. It's a different federal country. We are not a federal country. We are a semi-federal country. We are a quasi-federal country. We are a federal country, of course, but we are a quasi-federal country because we know that the powers are tilted towards the center. Many cases we have learned, right? A quasi-federal system. But what we had was implemented was a unified judiciary, right? The same judiciary which could adjudicate both center and the state laws. So, district court is well placed to adjudicate even a central law or even the state law. But unlike in America, the provincial courts cannot adjudicate the federal laws, right? So, they have a dual judiciary system in America, right? Provincial courts and the SCOTUS, Supreme Court of the United States, right? Which is majorly, if you analyze the American court system, and given an opportunity, I will also talk about it. SCOTUS adjudicates only the cases regarding related to disputes against constitution, constitutional disputes. Unlike us, talking about many other things. Come Diwali, crackers should not be burst between 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock. Ye, SCI, this can be held by some other court also, no? Liquor should not be sold 100 meters on the highways. Why poking nose on small trivial issues? 8,000 cases are pending. No? Need to try to resolve them, right? And give the chance to the other courts to really show their mettle and their strength and through their judgments. Because judges speaks through their judgments. Judges जो है मीडिया के अंदर, हाँ, it depends on the personality of a judge also. Like retired CJI DYC was very media friendly. Even after retirement also, he went to various conferences, media. Today also he teaches many law students in various national law universities in India. There are some judges which are very media friendly, right? There are some who are not, right? But unnecessarily trying to be yourself as the legislature will also kill the very democratic fabric, right? Because legislature is an elected body. We elected it to make laws. If you are trying to exceed and try to decide about the fate of every law, then actually you are jumping your I would say jurisdiction, right? Judiciary should not enter into the room of legislature, right? Principal distance should be maintained. Right? As in America, the SCOTUS only adjudicates the constitutional cases, unlike Indian SCI, which also adjudicates the cases of in Delhi what happened, So, but then we have a integrated one single system of court, unlike the dual judiciary in America and unlike the dual polity in India. We have a dual polity, state list and the union list, but we have a single integrated system of courts. We don't have a dual system of courts. And through appellate jurisdiction, the cases go from the bottom level to the top. So, there is no division of the judicial powers. And this was being adopted from Government of India Act 1935. Single system of courts or integrated judiciary was adopted from GOI 1935. Then it was called as federal court. In fact, after independence also we continued federal court, right? That is the reason why that Privy Council didn't got abolished. Though the law was passed, but it continued. Though the law, abolition of Privy Council, I think I have already mentioned this earlier, it continued till the SCI came, right? And SCI came on 28th January, if I am not wrong. 28th January. Yes, 28th January the Supreme Court of India was established, and that is the founding day of the SCI. So we have a single system of court which enforces both the central as well as the state laws for union as well as the states. One system of fundamental law and justice.